This is Breaking Free BFS Live, episode 81. I hope I labeled it right. No, actually, it says 80 in the description. My bad. Perfect. This is episode 81. I'm looking blown out today, but I think, as you said, it's the dark shirt. I might be out of focus, too. Hold on. Let me fix that. Why don't you tell the people about yourself?
Well, my name is Shawn Danek. I live in Rochester. I enjoy riding at Breaking Free Skatepark. It's quite a fun place. Avid mountain biker. Trail builder. Yeah, it's a great scene.
Cool. I am in focus. It's just the low bit rate just doesn't look very good. But
I think he looks great.
Thanks. So yeah, this is Shawn Danek. You're as you said, an avid mountain biker. You've been a customer for a while. You do a little bit of everything. Of all my guests, I probably know the least about you than anyone. Mm-hmm. So this will be a little bit of a different experience because many of the people I've had on, I've been friends with. Yeah. So it's like we kind of already have a rapport and we can, I don't know, work on that. I don't know. So this will be a little bit different, but probably, hopefully if I'm halfway decent at this, it'll seem like we know each other better than we do because we don't know each other.
Yeah.
But
hopefully I know enough about myself to talk about myself.
So before I get everything going, I just want to shout out, we did Wrench Fest over the weekend. It was awesome. It was a complete success. I would say the goals I wanted to hit, I think we hit. I was hoping for 300 people. That was my high mark. We checked in 180 riders, and I'm sure we missed a bunch of people because there was just so many people coming in and out. And
it was chaos, but in a good way.
Yeah. And so like, we didn't check in just people going into the riding area. We just checked people who were riding. Even in the kids that were free, we tried to check them in as well. So I think with 180 checked in, there certainly was at least 200 riders between some of the vendors who ended up riding later and whatnot. So I think easily 200 people riding. And then there was 30 parents in the morning during the balance bike thing. So yeah, there's 30 people, the bands, the vendors. So I think it's safe to say we have between 250 and 275, possibly more. So that's pretty darn close. Yeah. I was hoping to do $5,000 in sales, although I never even, when I planned this whole thing, I wasn't even thinking about money, frankly. I was just trying to do a sick event. And it was only like right when it was about to happen, like the day before, I was like, wonder what kind of day this is going to be monetarily. And I'm like, it'd be really awesome if I could do $5,000 in sales. And I've never done remotely close to $5,000 in sales. No. And being that it's free for kids and $20 for all day, and a lot of what we were offering didn't cost anything. We did $4,300 in sales that day. Yeah. Which is pretty good. The clothing drop was huge. Kyle coming through clutch at the end there. And I didn't know I was going to have all those new shirts that day. We sold so many shirts, all the new merch. So that was awesome. Huge. And like we sold food. Well, a lot of the food we did was free. And then we sold some and it went really fast. So that was cool. I ended up paying the one band more than I said I'd pay them because we were just killing it, having a great day. Yeah, it was a great event. There was a lot of people who just paid extra or they were free and they're like, here's $20 anyway. So like, that was freaking awesome. You were there, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was there, did the bike jam.
Get that mic a little bit more in front of you.
A little more like that.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, I was at the Trails Jam with all the 585 guys. It was great. Really a lot of fun. It was the best I've felt on my bike in a while, surprisingly. It was weird when I walked through the door. I kind of like got one. Usually I do like a warm-up riding around the park and kind of get used to my bike, and it was like, I'll just go up to the jump line where everyone else is and kind of like dropped in first, and I was like, ooh, I don't feel comfortable. And then it took like 3 or 4 runs, and then I finally like things started to click, felt really good. So that was nice.
I didn't really see anything happening in the jams. I was just so in here with the bands and all this stuff. I like glanced over a few times. I'm super thankful for all the people who ran those jams for me, so I didn't have to.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a really fun.
There was a good division of labor there where like it seemed like a big complex event, but so much of it was being taken care of by this group or that person. So it took a lot of it off my plate so I didn't have to do it. So that was really great.
It was really nice having things kind of like split off in their own things with other people kind of taking responsibility. It was like we ran the Trails Jam. We almost didn't have to worry too much on our timing to make sure that linked up with the event that was after. They kind of just sort of synced together and ran on their own thing because it was their own type of riding.
And there was zero there was no hiccups. Everything went smooth. The raffle went smooth. The bands went smooth. I had a couple people complain it was too loud.
Really?
Which could make, I get it. You know, the surf rock band was loud. You know, they're playing with vintage tube amps, so they have to be loud to get the tone that they want, you know, because those amps, that's how it works. And it was a little loud, but what are you going to do? Yeah. That was my first time having a band here. I thought it sounded surprisingly good. Yeah. Although surf rock has that kind of like reverby, echoey sound. So like it kind of made sense. Yeah. And that opened the door to, I think I'm going to do another event with bands later in the summer.
That'd be really cool.
And I'm tossing on the idea of doing an open mic night once a month or something. So I'll digress from that. So thanks to everyone that came out to Wrench Fest. There still are some raffle prizes that have yet to be claimed.
Really?
My buddy won the Iron Smoke whiskey bottle.
I was hoping I'd get that.
And, and the tour. So I'm pumped I get to go on the tour.
Nice.
My buddy. And yeah, a lot of the prizes haven't been claimed yet. So if you the odds of someone that listens to the show and was here and bought it are pretty low. But if you were, go check out that post on Facebook and Instagram and check your numbers. I had the one biker guy come in today. He won the $40 gift certificate to Parkway Liquors, which that's a good gift certificate.
Nice. I put in for that one too. I gave Ben all my numbers right when I left, and I was like, keep an eye on them, and we didn't. No luck for me.
Yeah. All right. So thank you with Wrench Fest and everything. I got no other announcements for anything happening here. So we're going to move right into the podcast here. So Shawn Danek.
Yeah.
Welcome to BFS Live.
Yeah. Pretty sweet setup back here. It's really cool.
And like as I said before, I don't really know too much about you, but I know that you shred. I know that you are seemingly fully committed to whatever you're doing. It seems like you're a great dad.
Thanks.
And that's something that I've always wanted to focus on this podcast about, like what I would define as positive masculinity, which would be things like, being a good father, being a good husband, doing what's right. Obviously that's part of it, but the whole idea of like, you're going to make it happen, right? I'm going to load up the car. We're going to go to race. We're going to do the thing. Like in 10 years, in 20 years, you're not going to remember the complaining or if their kid pooped his pants or whatever, but you will remember the first time you all went here. And it doesn't have to be Ohio. It could be just going here or going to the Parrington Skatepark. And I find that so many parents, especially dads, it's like, I know they have balls because they had to have the balls to have the kid, but now that they have the kid, they just don't have the balls. They just like aren't going to man up and just do the thing because it sounds like it's hard or oh my God or whatever. So you seem like you do it. And that's what I want to talk to you about for the most part.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that in the second half. In the first half, we're going to kind of learn a little bit about you so people can get to learn a little bit about you because I don't even know about you.
Okay.
But what little I do know about you is that you seemingly will backflip anything that you can ride on.
I try to.
Is that true? And why the hell do you do that? And tell me all the things you've backflipped.
All right. Well, I guess starting off, I guess the first thing to actually backflip for me was a set of skis. I grew up like skiing with all my brothers and my family. And I think it was on my dad's birthday. It was back in like February of 2002. I was 12 years old, and it was like an actual snowstorm, awesome, like powder day. And at the bottom of one of these runs, there was people that were starting to build, just roll a huge snowball down the hill and start to build like just a steep flipping jump. And I was like, Dad, I want to flip. And like, we'd always grown up like flipping in like our pool and stuff and things like that. So I kind of like knew the motion. And he was like, all right, I guess it's soft powder day. Go for it. And it was me and my brother Colin, and we both just went for it. And I think it was probably 5 times in a row of like kind of over rotating it and like back slapping and riding out. And then finally like the 6th one, I remember stuck that one, which was cool.
And how old are you again?
That was 12.
12 years old.
Skis.
All right. Ski flip. All right.
Yeah. The biking stuff took a lot longer. It was actually funny. The bike, the first place I technically flipped was here on the Resi. Okay. But Resi doesn't count. Well, everyone should know that. And what's funny is ironically I went for round 2 after that of flipping it because I felt confident and ended up slipping a pedal right on the landing and like taking my ankle and almost touching my toe to my shin. And this is 9 months after I had shattered both my heels. So it was not a good thing to do. They were already relatively fragile. luckily for me, I actually had a small follow-up surgery that was already pre-planned for that left heel because I had like a small bone fragment poking like out of the bottom on the heel. It felt like I was stepping on a small like pea-sized stone all the time.
Oh, geez.
So it was like I was guaranteed going into surgery for that, and it was lucky that I did that foot because I was able to walk on crutches anyway, like planning on it. If it was opposite, switched around, I would have probably been back in the wheelchair again for the time being because I wouldn't have been able to put any foot down.
Did you backflip the wheelchair?
No backflips on the wheelchair. Did a lot of wheelies on it, which was fun. But then I guess 5 years later, I got like the jump set up in my backyard, like I got a drop in from my garage, and then a like 6.5 foot tall ramp with a mulch landing. And I think it was like in June of 2023. That's when I did my first backflip to mulch, which doesn't count either. Okay. I would say maybe
I don't make those rules.
If we say resi doesn't count, maybe mulch doesn't count. Who knows? Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. And then I think it was a year later in like May timeframe, I did it finally dirt to dirt up at Pinnacle, which was really cool. And that was pretty special because I built that jump like 4 years ago with the intention of like, hey, I want to flip this thing someday. I need like a really well built trick step up jump, something that's would make it like safe to do kind of. But yeah, I guess that's kind of the history of some of the backflips.
So it's not you that backflips a jet ski, or is that?
Oh no, I guess I do. Yeah, I guess you can put I backflip a jet ski, but I don't ride it out yet. Still, and I don't ride enough to.
What's that mean? Ride it out?
Like, so I'll take it up a wave and I'll flip it fully around, but like I can't like get the landing nice enough and smooth enough where I actually ride it out. Usually you want to like nose it in and like softly land it.
Oh, okay.
I've done it a bunch of times where I've just gone like flat, like, and it like hurts, which kind of sucks.
Well, either way, you're backflipping a jet ski.
Yeah, it's still I guess
ridiculous.
Yeah,
I don't mess with water. I don't like water. I don't like swimming.
Ricky's real
like
smooth with the jet skis.
I did play Wave Race on Nintendo 64.
Wave Race was a solid
but you
game.
backflipped the jet ski. That's ridiculous. What's a jet ski weigh?
300-ish for mine.
Crazy.
Some of the aftermarket ones are a lot lighter. But the water, it's interesting because like with the waves and stuff, if you like, people are like, oh, it's scary if you land upside down with a jet ski on you. It's like, it's surprisingly not, because as long as you're holding onto that jet ski and you break the water with it, it doesn't hurt. Like, I mean, obviously like flopping on water feels, but it doesn't like impact you. The danger with the sport is when you throw the jet ski and you got a 300-pound object coming towards you. That's when it's like scary. And I've had a couple of instances where it was semi-sketchy like that, where I've learned my lesson to hold on tight.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you're in water, you can drown.
Well, you got a life vest. I got a life vest. I always run a life vest.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with water. Like, we didn't go in the pool. We went to the beach sometime, but like I still hold my nose if I go underwater.
Really?
I tried to get into swimming last winter, so maybe one day I could do a triathlon. And man, like
it doesn't
it's so hard. I gotta swallow my pride and get swimming lessons and learn how to swim correctly, because I could do about one lap and I'm just so gassed and smoked because I'm not comfortable. You have to be very comfortable in water, and I'm stiff and I'm not very fluid. I'm pretty stiff and
I can see if it's something that's not foreign, or if it's foreign to you, that it would
hate it.
Yeah,
absolutely hate it. Anyway. So you gave us a little bit. You skied, got into mountain biking. My second question was going to be like, give me your 2 to 5 minute bio on who you are relative to action sports. So I mean, you said you're a snow sport family.
Yeah, grew up
kind of the general idea there.
Grew up with 3 brothers. We're on 5 acres of land. We were always outside growing up. Snow days was like, it was always hanging out, kicked out of the house and just playing and building jumps, and just a lot of I had a really good childhood with my brothers. It was a lot of fun. There was always someone to push you to do something and try to be the best at. So that was always helpful. And I was really big into biking, I'd say, like mountain biking kind of just from the start, and same with skiing. And then I'd say by like around when I was like 16 or so, kind of when you could start driving, I kind of got out of mountain biking a bit, and more into like enduro dirt biking, which that's something my dad still does a lot. My 2 other brothers, they both still ride a lot of dirt bikes. It was just more accessible back then than I'd say the bikes were. And plus we were down in the Binghamton area, so it was kind of more like open land and free space. We knew a lot of people that had a lot of acreage to ride on and stuff. And then ended up, going to college, going to community college, 2 years in Binghamton area, then 2 years at University of Buffalo, which kind of sucked for skiing wise because it was in the opposite direction. I wanted to be like more east towards like Vermont and stuff. And then met my wife in college, and then we ended up she actually took a job in Buffalo. I took a job in Albany area, and then we ended up in Rochester. But from that, I was going to say then with the actual biking, I got back into biking when I moved back to Rochester, it was kind of like I moved to Rochester, was doing a lot less dirt bike, and I was like, I still need something to kind of like, I don't know, be athletic, do something, get like some fitness in. And I bought a random Gary Fisher, I think it was a Gary Fisher Hi-Fi Pro 29er off of Craigslist. And ironically enough, when I had that bike, I needed to do, I think, some suspension work or something to it. And I brought it to Tryon Bike Shop. And when I was there, I saw a kid with a red Chevy Colorado, and he had a downhill bike in the back of it. And it was Ricky Stat's truck, which is funny. So, and I remember walking up to him and be like, who rides downhill? There's no hills here. Like, there's no mountains. Everything's out in like Vermont and stuff. He's like, oh, we got a place called Pinnacle. You should come up and ride sometime. And so I ended up going up there.
When was this?
This was back in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like beginning of 2016. I was like, oh, okay, sweet. I'll come up, check it out. And I ended up going up there, meeting like a ton of riders, and I was like, oh, this is cool. There's like a huge community of people, and there was like pretty decent jumps and stuff, like actual challenging things to ride. And that kind of like sparked the real interest in mountain biking. End up buying more bikes because you can never have enough.
That's interesting. That's about when I started mountain biking too.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I like mountain biked in Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I had a red line single speed steel rigid 29er, awesome bike.
Yeah.
And I rode it intermittently. Mostly the year I knocked my teeth out, I was real weird about the BMX bike, so I did a lot more mountain biking. And then I moved here. I rode bikes a lot, but I was always like being a baby about going in the woods. Oh, I don't know the trails. I'm going to get lost. Just your typical stuff. And I remember after I started the business, and that was a whirlwind, and finally things started to calm down. So it must have been probably later. It would have been
2017.
The summer of 2017.
Yeah.
I remember like the day I just went to Bay Park West, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Because having the skate park kind of a little bit sucks the life out of BMX. And like my BMX days were kind of waning because the juvenile nature of the subculture.
Yeah.
I was just like, eh. And then just getting to that next level of now I'm running a business. I care. I don't have the time to care about this other stuff. I don't care about the politics of it. I just want to ride. And then being away from the riding scene for a year, starting my business, I kind of lost those connections with people. And like, despite texting people and trying to ride, like they had their crew, they had their thing, and I just was out of the bubble.
Yeah.
So it was 2017. I started mountain bike, and I absolutely just fell in love with it. And part of that's the here, everything is just it's inside. It's geometric. There, it's organic.
Yeah.
I'm alone. I found like this meditative space, and it just like completely changed my life.
Yeah, it's something probably completely new, especially for if you're kind of always here. You kind of like can make new challenges for yourself, find new spots, new things to check out.
And I was I'm dyslexic, and before I started the business, it took me months and months and months and months to try to read, to be able to sit down for a half hour and like just read.
Yeah.
And after the business simmered down enough that I had time to read, I lost it all. I couldn't get through like a paragraph. It was a nightmare. And somehow in that era, I like listened to my first podcast or something, and I was like, oh wow, I like this, And then I got to an audiobook. I don't remember how or what the first audiobook was. I think it was on my friend Amy's Audible she let me use. And then I was like, holy crap. And then it was just audiobooks and being in the woods riding and like my life, I'm like a different person on the outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah. The best part about biking is like you're doing a solid workout, but you're having fun. Like you go, if you're like, oh, I'm going to go out for a run so I can, I don't know, lose weight or something. It's like, it's not really fun. It kind of sucks most of the time. And it's like, I can go bike and be done with my bike ride knowing I really worked hard and be like, I still want to go ride bikes again. Like I want to keep it going.
I once did a 100-mile day between 3 different rides.
That is amazing.
I got out in the morning, did like 30 miles on the road bike. I did a huge like 30-mile mountain bike ride, like hit all the parks. Maybe it was like 25. And I was like, well, gonna eat like a late lunch and go right back out. And I think maybe went to the bar, then rode a couple miles.
That's impressive.
But anyway, a couple follow-ups to what you said there. Of your one of 4 brothers?
Yeah.
Where are you in that line of brothers?
I'm the youngest.
Oh.
Youngest by 6 minutes. Got a twin brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I got one brother that's 3.5 years older than me. His name's Jason. And another brother who's 2 years older than me, Colin. And then my twin brother, Mike.
The dynamic probably changes when you have twins, but was there anything to that? I'm the baby, I'm the youngest one. Like, were your older brother, you felt like your older brothers were giving you a hard time, or you?
I don't. Surprisingly, I think like from what I can remember of childhood, me and my brothers, we all got along really well. I mean, we'd have our like fights and stuff, but like we're still like I call my twin brother pretty much every day. I mean, he lives down in North Carolina, so we don't see each other as often, but it's like we're on the phone always, like checking in with each other, seeing how things are going. But yeah, we always kind of got along. There wasn't too much of like bullying. There was lessons to be learned, and it was kind of nice because it was like we were a small, almost democracy of some sort, because we had everyone who like you could, if someone was being a shithead, you could tell them they were.
Did you all do all the same sports, or was there much deviation?
We all did. So we all skied, all biked, everything like that. I'd say that me, my twin brother, and my brother Colin were maybe more of like the wanting to go on like the extreme end, wanting to flip things, spin things. My brother Jason was more like dialed in on like form. Like say like we're doing like mogul skiing, he would rip us apart in mogul skiing. But we were interested in mogul skiing because we'd hit the jump that was midway down the mogul run, that kind of thing.
Well, that sounds like you have a great brother.
Yeah.
I my younger brother wanted to like ride BMX and like be like me and like dye his hair blue like me. And back when that was cool, this is 2000, literally 2000.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, like I'd reject it. I was like, don't just copy me. Like, it's just too cool. Funny. Like I was, and I was, you're in 14, 15, you're like trying to find your own vibe. And then someone's trying to bite. I felt like he was just trying to like bite my style. And it was like, I don't have a lot of regrets in life, but that was when I really should have just been like, no, like, hell yeah, this is awesome. Come ride bikes, and life would be very different for both of us had we done that. And my brother will be on the podcast, and he went down, he ended up being more like my older brother for a period of time, which involved a lot of heroin and prison and a lot of messed up stuff. But he's clean and straight now, and he's fucking awesome.
Good. That's good to hear.
And he'll be on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I had my twin brother, the only time we had like a don't copy me kind of thing. It's like, so we went through high school, like most of the same classes, most of the same interests, did like springboard diving in high school, skiing, all that stuff. And then we both ended up doing community college engineering together. And then it finally came time to pick our, whatever, the 4-year school we were going to transfer to after. And my brother Mike was like, you can't copy me. You seem to do everything I do. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll pick where I want to go to school. I guess because there was like 3 or 4 different choices. I'll pick first, I guess. And ironically enough, he picked the same school.
That's hilarious.
As we both ended up at University of Buffalo and actually lived in the same house for those years too. So it was kind of funny.
That fits in well with my follow-up question there. I would say you're a New York boy.
Yeah, New York boy.
Binghamton, Albany, Buffalo, Rochester. You hit all of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Have you ever lived outside of state?
No, I haven't lived outside of state.
You ever wanted to live outside the state?
There was a point in time of like, I'd say in high school and college of like, I grew up way more of an avid skier. If you met the, 14, 15-year-old Shawn, like he liked biking, loved it. It was a lot of fun, but he was way more passionate about skiing. Like he dreamed about skiing, wanted to do like all the crazy tricks people were doing back then. I had thoughts of like, oh man, what if I just drop everything and really try to give it my all with this, which thank God I didn't, because I wouldn't have been able to do it. And the kids nowadays are ridiculous. There's people who do triple corks that I've never even heard their name, and they don't make a dime doing it. But let's see. So was more interested in skiing back then, and always like kind of wanted the idea of like, oh, it'd be cool to live out west. But it was, I don't know. I'm pretty close to my family, so it was like something I couldn't ever really truly commit.
I know a lot of people that live up here that like snow sports are like, yeah, you don't even bother skiing in this state. Yeah. And I have no context for that. I grew up so poor. I just figured snow sports were like rich people shit. So like, whatever. Like it's like it's Vermont or New Hampshire or out west.
Yeah. When we were in community college, we lived in Binghamton, but my two older brothers went to RPI, which is in like Albany area, and we'd go almost every weekend. We'd go up to them and we'd go ski in Vermont. We had like season passes in southern Vermont, so it was only like it's probably 4 hours away, but we'd spend most of the weekends up there. It's kind of funny because like with how much more interested I'm in biking and stuff as opposed to skiing now, I almost wish I didn't have the childhood steering of as much interest in skiing, because I'm way more interested in biking now. It's kind of, I don't know, odd. But yeah, I still like skiing. I still do it. I set up rails and stuff in my backyard and still play with those. I haven't done as much like resort skiing, but that's just because it's a little more complex these days.
Never done it.
Really?
I went to Brockport once on the tow rope.
Really?
Actually, I have a snowboard.
Okay.
My overall cost on my snowboard is positive $40.
Really? That's pretty good.
Came at the skate park, and they gave me this board. Maybe it was a Burton, I'm not sure. It was cracked, but like, here, you have it for free. I was like, sick. Then some other kid was like, saw it in the counter, and he's like, yo, you need bindings for that? Yes, I do. So then this kid is like, all right, would you trade it me for sessions? And at this point, I was working at RASP, and I kind of had the authority to do that. And I was like, sure. So then I traded a bunch of sessions for the bindings.
Oh, that's sweet.
Then I went to a thrift store on Ridge Road, got Vans boots for $40.
Mm-hmm.
Then another kid, this used to ride BMX, this kid Mike, who was always kind of sketchy, saw my board. He goes, oh, it's sick. It's cracked. You don't want to ride that. I got one. I'll give you a better one. And I was like, okay. And he comes in and he gives me this other board. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll set that all up. And then someone saw my other board that I took out, like, dude, you selling that? Sure. Best offer. How about $80? Okay. So like, I was positive $40. And we would go to Cobb's Hill or over Highland and just like make some jumps. And I've like hit a jump onto a picnic table and like 180'd off. Like skateboard.
It's pretty kind of similar. They drive together.
Went to do the tow rope thing at Brockport once, and then that was the closest to an actual hill I ever went down. I got freaking rocked the first time I went down. I was like, this is easy. And I started drifting backwards, and I was like, got edge.
Oh, that's the one thing with snowboard is like the mousetrap on a snowboard is awful.
Yeah.
It's like skiing's easier to learn, harder to perfect.
Okay.
Snowboarding's harder to learn, but easier to perfect. If that makes sense. I'm sure
someone's going to argue with that.
Yeah, probably. But at least in my experience, I've done a little bit of snowboarding, maybe like 10 times at a resort. I've borrowed someone's, but I can do it kind of. Not like I'm great, but.
So you're a New York boy.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've lived in almost all the big cities here, really. What's the best one?
I'd say Rochester. So
Let's go, Roxy!
I know I sound biased, and it's funny because I would have, growing up in Binghamton and all that, I would have never actually thought that. But grew up pretty much on the border of Pennsylvania and did did school there, and then came up, was at Buffalo, and then ended up, I took a job in Albany area, and Carly took a job in, that's
Albany's
my wife.
Cool.
Yeah, Albany's pretty cool, actually. We were, was in like Schenectady area, and two of my brothers still live out that direction. They're both
shout out my buddy Matt Smith. He will be on the podcast in a month or so. He lives not Albany. What's across the water from Albany? Troy.
Oh, Troy.
I think he lives in Troy or Albany. One of those places. I was out there for his wedding a couple of years ago. He owns actually they sell all of his stuff at Ray's. The showcase with all like the stem pads and crossbar pads. He like hand stitches. The crossbar or top tube pad or stem. He calls it a stem buddy, so don't hit your knee. Oh. He hand makes all of those and sells them.
That's pretty sweet. Called the
Yeah, YEA. Shout out to Yeah. Go buy their stuff.
Wow.
He used to live here. He worked for Kink briefly, and he moved here around the same time I moved here. And we were both the new guys in town, and we were really good friends. We're both total BMX nerds. Nice. We really got along great, and we still talk to this day.
That's cool. What brought him out towards Albany then?
He is originally from Central PA, Harrisburg.
Okay.
And not Harrisburg, but outside Harrisburg. And he was up here, and then he went back there, and then he met his wife, who, from all accounts, I've met her. She seems absolutely wonderful. And I think she was from there. So if they got married, they moved up there.
Sometimes the wives do that. My wife's originally from Rochester area. Okay. So that was the guiding thing that helped bring me this direction.
Well, my wife's from Wellsville.
Oh.
No way. Worst city.
I could agree with that.
So what year did you end up in Rochester?
So it would be, I guess, beginning of 2014. So it was funny when I was living in Albany. I had a job I hated, absolutely hated it. It was working as a mechanical engineer for a place called Knowles Atomic Power Lab, which sounds really cool on paper, but trust me, it was not. It was a lot of it was like administrative work with a title of being an engineer.
Boring.
Yeah, exactly. It was high level government security clearance. You couldn't bring a phone on site. You couldn't use the internet. So imagine a whole day of you're bored and you can't check your phone, check the internet. So hated that. But anyway, during that time, I'd actually taken a trip out west doing a ski trip. I hated the job so much that I told the people there, I was like, hey, I'm going to take about 8-week leave of absence, unpaid. You don't have to pay me, but I'm going to go visit family and see people, all my relatives throughout the States, and I'll still come back to work, but I'm going to do it, or you guys can fire me. I don't mind either or.
And they kept you, and you're like, damn it.
They kept me. I was like, all right, whatever. I guess I'll take it. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, I did a trip going out west, living out of my little Honda Civic. I actually built it out. So
oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, it was all insulated. I had a heated blanket, battery pack, so I could, like, if there was cold nights, I only had to use a heated blanket once, though, which was kind of cool. It was well enough insulated that it worked.
A regular coupe Civic?
No, sedan. Yeah. I built in the actual trunk of it, I built like pretty much like a coffin almost. So it was like your feet would go into the trunk, and then your body would be like on the rear seat. And then I'd take the driver's seat and I'd just slam it forward a little bit.
I don't know why I said coupe. That's dumb.
But so I did that trip, and when I was on that trip, I actually had Carly fly out. She was my girlfriend at the time. She flew out into Oregon, and we drove the California coast, did some skiing in California. But I ended up proposing to her on the beach in California, which was cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I tricked her. I told her it was, hey, let's get a picture with this beautiful sunset. And I actually had the GoPro sitting on the beach and recording it, which was cool. But yeah, so from there, I kind of knew at my job in Albany, I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to be working here much longer. And it was our main goal when she got her job in Buffalo and I got mine in Albany was let's race to our destination city where we want to be. I'll apply to jobs where I want. You apply to jobs where you want. Whoever gets one first, we're going to go there. She ended up getting a job in Rochester first. So I was like, cool, let's do that. And so it was kind of funny when I lived in Albany, I had actually purchased the house that we live in now. Like, it was like when I told management there, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be moving to Albany. And like, are you sure? What if we do this? What if we do? And I'm like, I own a house there now. Like, I'm done. I'm going to be moving that way. So yeah, it was 2014 time frame that we moved here.
That's interesting because so you've been here for 9 to 10 years now. 11 years?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I've been here for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny how our timelines are like, we're like right there.
Yeah.
Pretty similar.
Yeah, both from out of the area, but now we're pretty locked into the area. Yeah, and that when I actually moved there in 2014, I actually spent the first 9 months with her parents at their house. It was kind of her parents are awesome. They're great people. Like I get along with them so well.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's rare.
It was yeah, most people are like, "Oh my God, you live with your in-laws right now?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're great. They're awesome." They were a lot of fun.
My in-laws are not.
No.
They're just like, I don't know. We've interacted a little bit. Like I'm a doer. Like I'm a goer. I'm a doer.
Yeah.
I do. I was do this podcast.
I was gonna say you do a lot. There's a lot of doing. I'm so
really
impressed.
Like having meaningful conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot be bothered with just like the shallow, pedantic nothingness of most people's lives. No offense to anyone. And my wife's parents are like they have like nothing to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds mean. And I don't want, I'm not, they're nice people, but like they talk about nothing. They just like, they'll talk for like an hour and there's nothing of any substance. It's just like very,
there's not a passion behind it.
There was traffic on the way here. Did you see that new thing that opened? Like it's always so surface level. And I cannot be bothered with anything. I like, a lot of times when I have disagreements with people, it's because they're talking about like the first level or the second level. And I'm like, no, I'm talking about the underlying principle behind the idea, behind the ideology that leads people to think this way. So it's like, again, they're good people, but
yeah. And
my wife, and even if my wife hears this, which she won't, and my wife will be on the show soon.
Oh, cool. When's Alice going to be on?
Well,
Alice will have to be here. Right?
I'm probably going to set up the podcast in my living room and have a little more like.
That's more reasonable than
the whole and maybe she'll wake up mid-show or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that's cool to hear. Like I love that positive family talk, and I know I just sound like I was talking negatively, but I'm not really talking negatively. It's just neutral.
Yeah.
Like my wife's uncle was here during Rensfest, and he's like the black sheep of the family. He's in recovery. He's been clean for a long time, but he's a little out there. I think he's actually schizophrenic, but like. We talk about real stuff when he comes around.
Yeah, the conversation carries on.
He kind of like jumps from topic to topic, but he'll listen and he'll engage. And like my wife's mother and this guy, they hate each other. And like if she knew I talked to Phil and liked Phil, like that would be like, "Argh."
Really?
Yeah,
that's funny.
But anyway, we're not talking about my family life here. So this will work out great. I segued the next question. It'll work out good. And you set me up, but then we went off on 3 tangents, but that's how it goes.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is I'm no engineer, but you seem like you have an engineer's mind. And now I do know from you telling me you, in fact, are an engineer.
Yeah.
You seem really fascinated in jumps and building features and the angles and the trajectory and this and that. And how'd you do this? What is that? Is that just part of you?
Yeah, kind of part of me, and kind of the designing and working on ramps sort of stemmed from knowing that I wanted to kind of have my own setup and stuff at my house. Like I usually
don't build a skate park.
Yeah, it's awesome. I like it. But yeah, the one thing with like doing a lot of the downhill mountain biking and most of the mountain biking in general is you're kind of traveling for like the real good stuff. And it's like at some point, like if you build the good stuff local, build it close, build it in your backyard, you kind of got it there and it's ready to go. Like I can put the kids to bed at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and if it's still light out, I could go hit my ramp for a little bit. But yeah, it kind of started, I don't know. I knew I wanted to build a jump and like something at my house. I didn't know how exactly. And then I was lucky enough that one of the jobs I was working on, they were offloading dirt about 25, 30 minutes away down to Mendon. And I was like, hey, instead of offloading that dirt to Mendon, do you want to just detour to my house and just dump it? And they're like, sure. Your house is 5 minutes closer. That will save us. We'll do it. And so that was nice. So I had a ton of dirt delivered to the house. And then it was a matter of figuring out, okay, how am I going to get speed for this? Because I have my property has maybe 4 foot of elevation change at most. It's pretty much a flat field. But I've got a garage, a detached garage that's probably
cool.
Top of the garage is 15 feet up. And my other brother, he's a supplier quality mechanical engineer, but he's really good with like getting projects done, and he was up visiting, and he's like, let's build a drop-in off your roof. And he's smart enough where he came up with the idea of, instead of like drilling holes and stuff through the roof, because I've got a metal roof, he was like, let's take the bolts and screws out and go from underneath with bolts to hold the wood. So we basically put, I think it was like 9 2x4s across. They were like 16 footers or 8 footers, depending on where we were working. And they're technically temporarily put in. They're not like, it's not like we've screwed or create new holes in our roof. It's just we've taken out the old hardware and we've gone through the holes that were already there to lock it in.
And then the deck is attached to those.
Yeah, deck's attached to those
genius.
and built up. So it's like
brilliant.
So hopefully it never like is a thing where it's like it has to be taken down, but it technically, I don't know, if I move in 10 years, it can be taken down. So that was kind of cool.
That's great.
Yeah, that was I think it was back in like 2020 is when we really started the build for that.
Well, you showed me this graph you made that has like launch angle and height of ramp and radius, which is like, that's pretty good. We'll
have to pop this one up on the screen at some point in the future.
Yeah, maybe you send it to me. I'll put it on the screen for that. Like, why do
the original concept for that was like, so I'd go to other bike parks, I'd go to indoor bike parks, and I'd be like, well, I want to build that ramp. I like that one a lot, but I don't know the radius. I don't know how to measure it. I don't know like what I'm going to work with. And like, I didn't know too many other people that were ramp builders or who to talk to, or like, and I could do a little bit of like brief Googling of like, hey, I've built a ramp, do a 10-foot radius and make it 4 feet high. And I'm like, yeah, but I want mine 6.5 feet high, or I want it like this size. So I finally was like, you know what? I got an engineering degree. I got some brains. I should back calculate this and solve it out, and figured out, just, I can't really reiterate or explain it that well on camera, but just figuring out that I could develop a formula that would, as long as I knew the height of the ramp and I knew the takeoff angle that I was aiming for, that I could have it spit out the radius, which is the most important part for cutting and doing a ramp, because you trace it on the ground and you work with that.
Well, we'll put this into your engineering mind. The wheelbase on like a 20-inch bike versus a 26-inch bike, or even like a 16-inch BMX bike. The point in which your front wheel is coming off your back wheel is on a different part of the radius. So I guess, you know, what does that mean? Was that in your head? What does that tell you? Did that spark something like?
Well, it definitely makes you realize that anything kind of tighter radius, obviously, would be for the smaller wheelbase, it would feel a lot better. A lot of the mountain bike ramps I've seen and worked and built with they run bigger radiuses for sure.
Did I talk to you about the wheel mill jumps?
I don't think so.
Okay, so this dude was here, Will Luth. He has trails in south of Buffalo somewhere. I've heard rumors of him. He like mixes it with concrete. They're like really tall and steep and like skinny and like crazy, and only some people ride them.
That's sweet.
He was telling me, we're talking about wheel mill, because he hadn't been here in years. And I was like, when dudes walk in that look at dirt jumpers, I go to them right away and I start telling them about my jump line, because I want to like, you know, field the ground balls before they hit them to me. Like, all right, okay,
yeah.
The last jump, the landing's weird because the floor, blah 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 blah. You know, just go slow, whatever. But
I think the jump line's been feeling great, by the way. Really like it.
It's going to get better. And
That's
I was telling him that, what was I saying to him? We redid the landings of both jumps since because he hadn't been here in years. Mm-hmm. And I redid my landings based on the wheel mill landings, because their lower landings their jumps are so good.
Yeah, the wheel mill is...
I think they're pretty close to, well, I don't know. I know they saved all the ramps, and they're stored in various people's houses or backyards. Yeah,
I think I remember you saying something like that they were stored in the odds and ends, like random places.
And I saw someone from Pittsburgh post something about trying to meet up and move something, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they found a location. But anyway, I was talking about those ramps and how good the landings were. And then he's like, oh, the lips are good too. You should talk to Mike or Mark Patasnia, I think their name. I know them from BMX videos back in the day, because they were like sick dirt jumper guys from Square One was the bike company they rode for. Mm-hmm. And I like kind of knew they were involved in that. I knew that was like really like their place. But when I went there, I was doing what you were doing. I was using a level app on my phone and going by height and trying to figure out, reverse engineer what those landings were. And I think I did a good job, because our new landings, I think they're awesome. I didn't even look at the lips. But what I did know is I cannot touch the big lines at Joyride or race. That is just so beyond me. I used to try and I could get through some of it. And it's just like out of my skill level, my comfort level for speed. It's just not I'm not a jumper.
Yeah.
But at wheel mill, I could jump all the jumps in the big line. I could even do tricks.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's something about them.
Wheel mill was really cool too, how it kind of like went like tapered. It made it like bigger, smaller, but it was all combined. So you just work your level. Yep. You didn't have to do like a big step up from a jump line to another bigger to another bigger. You just incrementally worked your way over on that line.
So what he told me was that their lips aren't straight radiuses.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He said the lip was a radius to a certain angle, and then maybe 2 feet or so of flat, and then another radius. And I don't think if he was sure whether the second radius was the same or a different radius. And I was like, that's really interesting. And then I started thinking about building dirt jumps because I don't really build them. I did when I was a kid, and I'm thinking like, do you build a dirt jump like it's one radius? You kind of do have that flat, you know.
I know with motocross, I've heard that it's like usually a good portion of them are constant radius, and then the last little bit has a bit of straightness. Yeah. And so I designed the jumps that are out in Wheelerville, which is like 3 hours from Rochester or so. But they've got like a 8-foot tall jump and to a landing that's probably like, I don't know, 10, 12 feet up, maybe 25-foot gap or something like that. It's a really nice jump. But that one I designed where it had a constant radius for the majority of it. And I think it was like the last 2 feet I cut to do straight, just so it kind of...
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of more like introductory to a jump because like a regular full-on ripping constant radius jump, if you're not used to it, it could throw you, it could buck you.
Yeah. I was thinking like if you had flat in the middle and then a little radius, maybe like a really slight would make sense. But it makes more sense that if it just flattened out the lip a little bit, it would probably feel more predictable. Yeah. And maybe that's something as we grow, I could try to reach out to him and get him on the podcast remotely to talk to about. Because that'd be really, really cool. Because not everyone, I actually met one person who thought their ramps were absolutely terrible. And that person's wrong. But,
I'd probably agree with that.
I would defend those jumps over my rams any day. But that would be really cool to get him on and talk about, because he said those guys, him and his brother, are like absolute wizard mad scientists. Like they eat, sleep, breathe jumps. Like just they have a dirt jump spot in out by Pittsburgh somewhere that apparently is like one of the craziest in the country. Like just really, like you can't even see the landing from the lip, and like they said they clock people going like 30 miles an hour. Just gigantic. I have no interest to do that.
There's some amazing gems in the BMX world. Yeah. It's wild to see what some people have built and can do, like with dirt jumps. It's so impressive.
Do you know who Real Static is? Real. Someone in the chat said no wonder the drop-in shakes, I guess relative to the one on your roof. Oh. I'm guessing it's one of the stats because it's static.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe Ryan Stat. I asked who is it, but he didn't answer.
That's funny. It seems pretty sturdy. We were pretty, I mean, I think everything we did for it was pressure treated wood, which was good. I think the top decking thing that we have right now, it might need replacing, but everything's holding up. I have a rule, no more than 3 people up on the roof. And I did put a railing up, climbing up last year, which was nice. It's kind of funny to think that I never had a railing going up because like I didn't think anything of it. I was just riding bikes. And then I finally put the railing there. And then I was like, oh, this makes it feel 10x safer. But yeah, we've used that for actually 3 weeks ago. I was skiing off of it too. The little drop-in. I put just where my roller is before the jump. I just put like a steep jump and just for single flips. I saw you post those clips that you do it. You're skiing some little rail thing, doing some spin to grind, and I was like, holy shit, this guy rips, dude. Yeah, those are always fun. Yeah, the rails are a great time.
I always joke when I talk to people about you. I'm like, this dude looks like a freaking insurance agent.
Thanks.
It's like you look like just like a normal ass white dude. Like you look like an engineer. Yeah. Right? But you're sendy as hell. I mean, you actually had probably one of the worst crashes I've seen here when you got knocked out. I've never seen someone get knocked out.
Dude, that was bad. everything about that I hate. I hate how bad whatever. I don't even remember what actually happened.
You were out and snoring for a long time. That was super scary.
I didn't everything disconnected until a full day later. It was I think I woke up at my in-laws' house is what I kind of recall it as, and I'm like, oh no, what happened? Just hearing about it, I was like, oh my God. I mean, luckily, kind of knock on some wood. I had a concussion when I was 8 years old, I think, doing snowboarding, ironically enough, which it wasn't a real true snowboard. It was a little plastic Walmart one, which oddly enough, I could flip that thing at my parents' house.
Are you going to tell me you've only been knocked out twice?
I do honestly think I've only
That's crazy.
had two real concussions. That's all. That's all
Someone's sendy when they're using the term real concussion.
Well, I've had small little hits maybe, but nothing like the true knockout there. I do remember when I was 8, I was doing a tail grab on a snowboard thing in my parents' backyard, dug the tip in and just slammed. Oh. And that one was I remember being stuck on a beanbag chair and finally waking up and being like, oh my God. And my parents you're not doing anything for a while. You got to sit. And then it was the one that happened here, which that one sucked. That was what made me for the most part when I'm indoors at a bike park, run the full face. Yeah. It's at least if I know I'm doing anything big or out of my reach, it's I'll run the full face just because of that.
I was just talking to someone about when I knocked my teeth out and got knocked out.
Yeah, I don't think I ever knew about that with the teeth. That one must have. Oh,
yeah.
You know what? Maybe I remember a long time ago that you did that but wow, that's wild. That was obviously BMX then?
Yeah. Ugh. Dicking around doing something dumb.
That sucks.
I'll tell that story another time.
Okay.
What I was going to tell you is that, I got knocked out and then, you get people get knocked out and they're like, oh, what happened? You just keep asking the same question because your brain, your system's rebooting, right?
Yeah.
And I remember my buddy who I was with, he was kind of being a dick about it. I'd be like, dude, what happened? And I could tell from his tone, I didn't know what happened. But I could tell from his tone, I must have been knocked out because he's answering me like he's annoyed that I've been asking this. And I would be and I remember saying, hey, I must have just gotten knocked out and I'm going to keep asking you this. So don't be a dick to me about it. Yeah. And it must have happened enough times that I remembered it. Or maybe he said it once and that was just the one thing that stuck out to me.
That's awful.
They had to argue with me. I didn't want to let him drive my car to the hospital, but he's like, dude, you're not driving.
Oh my God, that's funny. Yeah, I remember my older brother Colin, or probably shortly after I had my concussion, or maybe it was before it, he had one too when we were kids. And that one, I do remember him all the time being like, well, what happened? And then 5 minutes later, but what happened? And I was like, oh God, this is not good.
Yeah, it's always really scary.
We put my parents through some hell growing up. When I was, what got me, so I did a little bit of BMX when I was a kid.
Oh, cool.
And we started, not I'll say street trickish BMX, more kind of dirt jumpish. And we sort of scrounged what we got because it was we had friends I had a friend that did BMX racing. Ended up getting it was a Redline GT, or no, Redline, I don't know what model it was, but it was a race BMX bike, and the thing was kind of wonky, but it was kind of the only dirt jumping style bike I had. And oddly enough, on the smallest jump, maybe 2 foot long but more steep, at my parents' house, we had dirt jumps at the bottom of their driveway down by a creek. I ended up getting wonky and weird on the jump in the air. I landed on the handlebar with my inner leg. Didn't have bar ends, and it ripped a hole open in my leg that big, wide open. I ended up having 50 stitches.
50
stitches.
50.
Yep. 30 external, 20 internal, I think is what I remember them saying. But it was so odd because when it happened, I rolled out from the landing. I'm standing up, and I didn't know anything happened. I walked over to my brother, and I'm kind of rolling up my shorts, I shredded my shorts. This is stupid. And I'm rolling them up, walking towards him, and he goes holy shit, don't look down. And I was like, why? And I looked down, and immediately I just felt this heat, just, oh my God, warmth, oh my God, my leg is cut open. And I, you could see the layer of fat, the layer of skin. Yeah. You could see the big ass artery that could pulse and move. But somehow I didn't hit it. I had literally so for the whole injury, I had one trickle of blood that went down my leg, one single line. And what's funny is, so my brothers we had a probably 600-foot driveway at my parents' house. My brothers are carrying, limping, bringing me up as my one brother runs up to my mom to say, hey, this happened. And she comes down, and my other twin brother came down. He immediately looked at it and puked. I've always got to tell that part of the story. But yeah, from there, they just called 911, had an ambulance ride, and luckily got stitched up and was fine. And never has bothered me. You can barely even see the scar now, because I think it was 11 when it happened, maybe.
My buddy Irk, who was one of like the 3 people in my town that rode BMX, he lived in my neighborhood. Well, actually, I moved, ended up living in the same neighborhood as him. He was up here visiting once, and he was doing something dumb, and he fell, and he put the handlebar into his leg. But he did have a bar end in.
Oh.
And it still ruptured his leg exactly how you said. Like when you described like the fatty, like I have a picture of it on my phone, actually.
Ugh.
I recently showed it to someone, and he had a bar end in, and the bar end ripped out.
Oh my God.
I remember looking at his bike and being like, dude, you don't have a bar end? He goes, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I'm like, there's no bar end in your bike. I actually went back. It was actually a Tops rail, which is now would be, I guess, Aldi rail. And I went back the next day and I found it. It was all like glazed over with blood.
Wow.
He didn't hit the artery, but it was like his was bleeding like crazy. And they went to the hospital and everything. And then months later, he started riding, and he did it again and ripped open the scar.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awful.
Terrible.
Yeah, no, I was put on the sideline for a bit after that one. Like
Scared.
My parents didn't want me doing stuff, and we got back into it. But the most annoying part was I was on the smallest jump that we had down there. Like we had a couple of decent like 10 and 15 foot like long jumps. This thing was just a short, stupid, steep kind of thing that just got wonky and got unfortunate.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. I think if I had to guess, I think I've got like somewhere in the order of like 130-ish. If I had to like count surgeries and shit for all the stitches in me.
Okay, I'm on the other side of the spectrum. I've never had a surgery.
Really?
Knock on wood.
I've had a few of them.
I've gotten stitches a few times. I've definitely had plenty of injuries where I should have gotten stitches or should have gone to the hospital and just never ever went because I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to pay for it. I totally destroyed my ankle once and just never went to the hospital, and it was like really bad. And I still don't know what happened. I still have decreased mobility in that ankle, but it's pretty all right. So
I've shattered both my heels.
I remember that
metal plates in them.
How did you do that?
Well,
how you did that.
So I was out skiing in Vermont, and it was the first year that I didn't have a season pass at Mount Snow, so I was really itching to hit their XL park. They've got a jump at the bottom. I think that year I'd paced it out I have like a 6 foot long ski, and it was 12 lengths of them. So it was 70 foot lip to knuckle. And I went 65 feet. And to make matters worse, that was February 18th of 2018. Well, February 15th of 2018, it was a 55-degree day out. So everything had that like little bit of like a thaw, and then it went down to 30, and everything froze like a rock. And to make matters worse, that same day that we actually skied, it was like in the morning, there was an inch of fresh snow. So everything had just a little bit of a dusting that was slow. So in the actual video of it, you can see that I'm like full on crouched, tucked, going as fast as I can. Like I couldn't have gone faster if I wanted to, but it wasn't enough.
So did you land on the flat or on the face of the backside?
Pretty much the flat top. I landed the flat top, and it's funny, is 2 years or a year before that, my brother Colin did the same exact thing out in Breckenridge on a ski trip that we were all on, and he broke his pelvis in 3 spots. Oh. And yeah, it was probably 2 years before that. And I remember him telling me he landed on his ass though? Yeah, a flat top deck, just kind of stand
feet and then legs?
Yeah, okay. Feet and then down to hip basically. And that's
did you just stay on your feet? Obviously not on your heels.
Yeah, shattered. No, yeah, mine was like similar to his crash, feet, and then just kind of crumpled, and like nothing else got hurt. What's funny is all the doctors even said, they're like, usually when someone shatters their heels, that's the hardest bone to break. They usually break a lot of other bones with it, and mine, I didn't break anything else, just shattered.
How did you get your feet out of the boots?
That was my biggest fear when it happened. I was like, oh my God, they're gonna have to.
You're gonna ruin my boots.
So for how little I ski, I still have those boots. I still use those boots. Wow. Surprisingly.
So they just took your feet.
Yeah,
was it
they put
horrible getting them out?
I don't remember it being actually as bad as what it was. I mean, it was rough. I knew it was going to be rough, but they had like probably 4 people's hands all around just splitting, trying to get the boot out. And it was kind of like just a one, like, let's do it. And boom, it was out. So it wasn't as bad as what I thought it was going to be for getting them out.
That's so crazy. You broke both your heels.
Yeah, that sucked. Yeah, I was in a wheelchair for 90 days. Yeah, it was a bad, and so the funny story about that, so it happened out in Vermont, and I was like, you know what, we have really good health care out in Rochester. We'll go home. We'll book at home with this thing. Well, I had a 2003 Honda Civic with blown rear shocks. Like they sucked. So I was in the back of that as Carly drove the 5.5 hours home. Went to Highland Hospital, which I don't know why we picked Highland over Strong, because I think Strong is known for being better for trauma.
Yeah.
But we went to Highland. I don't know why or what caused that. Went to Highland, and they immediately like, you need to go to Strong. This is severe. I had to take an ambulance ride from Strong or from Highland to Strong.
You just drove 5 hours.
After I drove 5 hours, I was
Get
like,
the hell out
I was
here,
like,
dude.
I was like, dude, I just did 5.5 hours. Can I please just like save? Like, I mean, good thing with
bitch, I'm gonna walk there.
this injury, I was gonna blow through all the out of pocket everything. Like I knew it was gonna happen, so it wasn't like the worst thing. But it was like, well, that was a stupid like $3,000 or $4,000 ambulance ride, whatever it came out to.
Jeez.
But yeah, I think with all the bills and stuff with the surgery, it would have been like way more than like 50,000. Like luckily, I think I was like out of pocket like maybe 5 or 6 or something. But it was,
Jeez, dude.
yeah, it wasn't
crazy.
It was shitty. It was not fun, but it was good. Quite a good lesson learned. It was funny because when my brother broke his pelvis, I was like, you know, he's like, you guys got to stop. We got to stop doing jumps. You can't do this stuff. You got to grow up. And I'm
Never
like,
stop.
I'm always going to hit jumps. Whenever I go to a park, I'm going to hit their jumps. I'm going to do it until I can't or until I get something. And then this was the one thing where it was like, okay, I found my limit. I think I know it. And now it's like, I'm a lot more calculated. I don't guinea pig anything over 50 feet in length now.
What's guinea pig mean?
First time hit. Be the test dummy for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
I thought maybe that was like a snowboarding, skiing term I didn't know.
No, it's being the test dummy for the jump. So that day when I was at Mount Snow, nobody else hit the jump. And I didn't see anyone. So I didn't know, like, I could usually always go to a park and kind of run the speed. And most of the time at a terrain park, there's other people hitting it. And you're like, okay, you follow them. They did maybe 1 turn, 2 turns, kind of copy it. Or they went straight tucked and just copy that. Nobody had gone.
That's a big jump.
Yeah. So
That's
now I will, any jump over 50 feet probably won't hit. But if I'm going to hit it, it's 100%. Like I got to see 10 people do it ahead of me and see that the speed is locked in perfect. And then I'll know I can do it, kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Well, I think we have a feel for you now.
Yeah.
Psychopath. So we're going to do our midsection here where we normally just talk about a random thing in the news, which you told me earlier you kind of don't watch news or don't care.
I don't follow it as much.
At all. Yeah. So.
I see little things pop up here and there, but minimal.
Yeah.
I try not to invest too much because I know it's so far out of my reach.
Yeah.
that I hate the non-control side of it.
I forgot one thing. What is it? What do you do for work?
Oh, I'm a civil engineer.
What does that mean?
So like I work for the New York State DOT, and I'm on like construction road project, Route 15A, like between, trying to think 90 and 390.
Yeah.
There's like construction going on there. That's technically my project. That'll be like a mill and fill project. And we're doing traffic signal work. We're changing all the actual span wires to traffic signal poles and a bunch of the underground work. So stuff like that.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It's decent. It's like you get a nice balance of outdoor work, indoor work, and it's busier during summers, a little lighter during wintertime, depending on your project. Sometimes you can be on underground projects that like underground utility stuff and it keeps you a lot more busy, but it's a good balance of work.
All right. Well, then I'll try to keep this middle part. Maybe try to see if there's any tie-in with you. Is there anything going on with like the Trump Doge stuff that has any effect on what in your industry, or is it more localized?
I think from like a project funding standpoint, like with stuff with being like federally funded, I think that's kind of, I've heard talks of like people in the department saying that like, at least for planning for projects, they're having to like restructure things or think things out differently, which I luckily I don't know much of the lingo on it. I don't do much for design. I started off with civil engineering in a kind of like design and kind of internal office position, and I didn't like it that much. It was kind of like, I don't know. It just wasn't for me. And I got lucky enough in one of my companies to switch over and do like some inspection stuff. I'm like, this is nice. This is real world application. I can still use smart engineering judgment on real life stuff in front of me. You get to see a project from start to finish and see it actually work out. But yeah, the stuff in the office, like I've heard things like just the way like design reports are written.
So you're on
and
the
stuff.
state level.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, if you got pothole problems on a road, you can call me.
Call you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I won't fix them. I won't know anything about them, but I can direct you to the right people.
Does the DOT have like their own staff and crew, or is everything bid out to local contractors or contractors in general?
A lot of the work is bid out to like actual contractors doing the work. They still have their own like operations department. They obviously have all the snow plowing. They have their own design, but they also subcontract out design. Like there's other private side firms that do a lot of the design work, but it all follows like a standard like spec, like New York State spec with everything. It's somewhat nice because it's very organized and very detailed, but it's also not nice because there's so much monotonous detail like to know of. But if you're smart and know your stuff, you can be proficient at it, I guess. It's like a good way to put it.
So the critics of all the Doge stuff are saying they're just kind of indiscriminately just cutting. The Doge people are saying, they're looking for waste and fraud is their main stuff. Like, is there anything that you see on your jobs, or like there are certain companies that we've been up to that company? They're like, is it even possible the way these contracts are made, or are you not involved in that side of it?
I don't know if like from a like there's stuff on our projects that maybe I don't know. It's tough to say because it's like everything's bid with multiple contractors that are going for the best and lowest price. So it's kind of like.
Because lowest bid wins. Right?
Yeah, lowest bid wins. And usually, like depending on obviously your inspection staff and the people working that hold these contractors accountable to their work, usually things are done correct and how they should be. And in a perfect world, obviously there's maybe some people that don't pay attention as well or on something, or maybe they're putting in material on a road that should be 4 inches thick and they put it in only at 3, and someone wasn't on the ball with that. Like then maybe the contractor's getting life a little bit easier and getting kind of something like a freebie or something. But usually if you got competent inspection staff and competent people working with it, I'd say things are pretty on the straight and narrow.
Cool.
But, yeah.
Do you have an opinion on any of the Doge stuff, or?
I like the idea of it. I will say that. I think the idea of auditing a government that audits us is
that sounds fair. Yeah.
I think on more or less I agree on a common sense level that like if we get audited, why isn't the government audited? And if people hate the idea of it, that's like, I don't know. You shouldn't hate someone if they're finding, maybe if there's fraud, I've heard randomly or seen other things of like both ends of like, oh, they're cutting too much of like parks departments or like national parks, and then they're short staffed, and it's like, oh, if that's the case and that screws national parks, that sucks. But then it's like, oh, but there is huge fraud in this, and there's money going to something that makes no sense. It's like, well, crap, then maybe we should do this. It's like it's a back and forth of who gives you the information, and that's the one thing I will say that I always hate with politics is like it all depends on who's funneling it to you,
exactly,
and how accurate they get it.
Yeah, I'm always like, my angle is always like, I need more context. Like I've seen those, like obviously I'm sympathetic to all the national park stuff and the protected lands and whatnot. But again, it's context dependent. I saw someone posted about X amount of acreage or hectares that are going to be open for logging, and if that's old growth, that's absolutely unacceptable and horrendous. If that's like a 25-year-old forest that's been planted and whatever, it's like, okay, whatever, that's how it works. So I kind of need more data than just like the meme that you posted, or like, when there's X amount of people running this park, it's like, I don't know, like what goes into running that park. It means nothing to me, especially because I run a business and I know every day someone says something. It's like, oh, you have no clue about how this works.
Oh yeah.
And money just doesn't come out of thin air. So
now we have
out of our pay.
We have a better clue of how things work with all the reels you've been posting with.
Oh yeah. Oh, for the skate park. Yeah. Can we get like some reels on like behind Doge, I guess they post a lot of stuff. There's we pulled up on the last one, the Doge clock, how much money they claim to be saving or what saving. Yeah,
I've heard that there's a lot of documentation for what they do, and they have their website. I guess if I don't know, I guess it'd be neat to have both sides compare and what's actually true, what's not. If there is stuff that's not true, but
I saw a thing that they found $321 million of PPP loans went to children. Like that, like
children running businesses.
Yeah, people who basically made fake businesses. Like it's pretty easy. Like you just make a fake business and you like make fake payroll numbers and you just submit it, I guess.
Yeah.
And like just think about like if when they did the PPP program, if someone really was checking all of that data, it would take so long to get those payments out that it wouldn't even help the businesses. So they really basically had to just glance at them.
Yeah.
And the government's not good enough to use like AI or integration.
No, I was going to say probably all the stuff doing with that about this old technology too. I
heard today something. It's like one of the major government organizations still uses Windows XP.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what it was. But yeah, so they're probably just sending money out the door and not checking it. And like there's tons of fraud in the PPP stuff because they were trying to get it out fast. And so plenty of people were just, all right, cool, I'll fill out this paperwork and lie about it and see what happens,
Yeah.
And they probably think they're scot-free because it's so many years ago now. But yeah, I don't know. It's just saving all that money isn't going to get us out of our debt problem, but we probably should be more efficient, right? If this, like I said before the other podcasts, if we were a company or an individual, it would have been over a very, very, very long time ago. And like $36 trillion in debt
and rising
is absolutely horrendous. And our there's a lot of people that criticize the defense budget, which is $880 billion, but the interest payment on our debt is $1 trillion. We pay more in interest.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that was like their mortgage on your house? Like,
yeah,
it's so unsustainable.
It's mind blowing.
And it's the only reason it works is because other countries will buy our debt. And the only reason other countries buy our debt is because the US dollar is strong. And if the US dollar wasn't strong, they wouldn't buy our debt. And then the house of cards collapses. And you could argue that it's always been a house of cards. But like, do you really want to fly by that? Do you want to like gamble? I mean, I live in that world. Like the skate park's a house of cards. Things are so freaking tight for me that like one thing, if something happens this year that costs me like $5,000.
Oh yeah.
I'm like basically done, Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just optimistic things work out. Like I hope on the outside of this, from my side, it's like we've done the same. As long as I've been alive, it seems the government's done exactly the same thing. And
yeah, it's kind of been a rinse and repeat of whatever administration after administration. Maybe it's a change in pace, and who knows if it tips the scale just a little bit the other way. Then that's I'd call it a win.
One way or another, I keep saying this. Like we're gonna find out.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna find out. Like whether you like it or not, like we're gonna find out.
We're living through a pretty interesting movie.
I always say that people, it's like a human bias to think that you live in a particularly unique or special or challenging or time. And it's not true. The world's always changing. But like this does feel different. Like all of a sudden, like it's very different in good ways and bad ways, or those good ways could be bad ways depending on how you think. And I'll tell you what, on the outside of this, American politics are going to be completely different. Elections will always be different. Podcasts are here. Long formats here. No one will ever be elected again, at least not for a while, until the next big platform comes out. Like, everyone's going to do this next time. What we're doing right now.
Yeah, I was going to say podcasts are definitely that's
good. Could you imagine all these people that have been our presidents before? Like, could you imagine Joe Biden sitting down for 2 hours and talking? Like, could you imagine Kamala Harris doing that, or Hillary Clinton doing that?
Happened. No,
yeah,
not really.
But there are people like Bernie Sanders did it.
Yeah,
and he could hold a conversation, whether you like him politically or not. Like, he was awesome when he was on Rogan and he was on Theo Von and stuff, and like, he could do it.
Yeah,
and that's what
I mean. It should be a qualification just to simply talk off the cuff, especially in a position of that level of importance. Yes. You should be as true to your being as you can be.
Yeah. So I guess I'm really excited to see what happens in the next election, because long format's here. It's going to have to be here. And mainstream media is like, they better be scrambling to restructure themselves so next election they could do long format. Because no one, after last time, I don't think people want these edited pre-screened question things. And like, maybe let's try to make it seem that way and not actually make it any different.
Yeah.
Who knows? But if they don't, I think if mainstream media and the Democrats don't pivot and learn from what happened this time, I don't think they have a chance of winning again.
Yeah.
And I'm a registered Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see them like learn and adjust, because they clearly haven't.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. 100%. Yeah, there's something about having authenticity, for sure.
Yeah. God, love him or hate him, Trump's pretty authentic.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people he's surrounded himself with, love him or hate him, are fairly authentic. And almost every other person that's been in politics at a high level for my adult life has been utterly unauthentic.
Yeah.
Except for like Bernie Sanders again. Like, love him or hate him. I was a Bernie bro back in the day, and he seemed authentic. I don't truly believe he's as authentic as he portrays or was. Maybe portrays or was, either or, but still better than everyone else, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Let's move into our second half of the podcast. We're at hour 20 in. You believe that?
We're an hour and 20?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh,
right?
my God.
Time flies.
Yeah.
I remember the first couple episodes we did, I was like, time was going so slow, because I was like, and now things move pretty organically. So
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. On the second half, we're going to go into the dad life stuff, you know? This is a big pillar, a big tenet of what I wanted this podcast to be about. I wanted to talk to young riders, young skaters, and you know, inspire them to take the passion they have for that and give it to the next generation.
Yep.
You know, be committed, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna do it, freaking do it. You know, don't half-ass it. Don't, like, everyone. If you don't commit to the trick, you're gonna eat it, right?
Yeah.
So like,
you better know you have it. You better think it out.
Do it, right?
Yeah.
Do the work, right? So my first question is, I just want to talk to you about like your wife and your marriage. Your wife seems pretty awesome.
Yeah,
she'll be around when you're at events, and you seem to all work great with the kids.
We tested out the in sickness and in health when I shattered my heels, and
for sure
she absolutely had my back. I mean, just through the recovery process. I mean, Pinnacle Hill. She towed me up in a wheelchair to the top of that. Like,
wow.
We put 2 tie straps on her, and I tried to wheel, but the force was done by her. And she brought me up there just on a nice sunny day where all my friends are riding, just so I could be with my friends. That was like, just friends and biking and having a motivation of biking was like, it was medicine. But yeah, she's been an absolute rock for all of this.
And I have to imagine for her to be that committed to you, you obviously are very, very committed to her.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Do
you remember when you met?
Yeah. So we both went to University of Buffalo. She did the 4 years there. I did the 2-2 program with a community college. But the whole first year of community college, she's a civil engineer too. She actually works for the New York State DOT too. Her dad's a mechanical engineer. My dad's a mechanical engineer. They both went to Clarkson, oddly enough.
Wow.
Yeah, we have a lot of weird similar things. We both have a white patch of hair on the back of our head. We both have a uncle named Jim who has tragically passed away before we were even born.
I have an Uncle Jim.
Did he tragically pass away?
No, but he is currently in cancer treatment, so he almost recently passed away.
Okay, that's on the way of that.
Also, my friend Jimmy's in the chat.
Oh, nice. Hey, Jimmy. But yeah, we both went to the University of Buffalo. We were all in the same classes, but so my whole junior year, I remember seeing her and being like, wow, there's a hot girl in the engineering classes. This is cool. But she's taken. Got to be taken. She's gone.
Yeah.
Like I don't stand a chance. And then our senior year, beginning of the year, went to a party or something together and kind of just hit it off and started dating free from there. And
not taken.
Yeah, not taken.
But now taken.
Now taken and not giving her up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, and met her parents. I forgot how early, maybe like a month or so, and I was like, wow, her parents are great. Like, and she met my family maybe like within a month or so of us dating, and yeah, we just all got along really, really well, which was cool. She comes from a great family, and yeah, there's a lot to be said about that.
It's statistically anomalous, your family, where it's like you are both in shape, which is rare.
Mm-hmm.
Like only less than 10% of U.S. adults are metabolically healthy.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's
that
metabolically
bad.
healthy, let alone like skinny and in shape. Right?
I heard some statistic similar to that of like most, I think, adults over the age of 35, only like 15% of them have done a sprint within the last, like sprinted at full pace within the past like 2 years or 5 years or something like that.
Well, there's more millionaires than six packs by a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
so
insane.
anyway, the fact that you and your wife are both in shape and seem to get along, and you have kids, and then you go out together and do stuff, maybe those things go hand in hand, but it's just like, it's rare.
Yeah.
Like I live in a world where people come, they literally deliver their kids to here, and the odds of seeing the parents together and engaging with the kids.
Yeah, there's something to be said about a strong family for sure. Like for kids to look up and see parents who love and care about each other. And parents who are involved with the activities and things that they're doing. Like my dad he was always biking with us. Both my parents we always skied together as a family. I remember, because it was a lot cheaper to do night skiing when we were kids, but night skiing was a huge thing for us. Even though it was cold and sometimes crappy weather, it was still like a great thing for all of us to do. And her family, they all grew up, I think they skied, not at Bristol, but at Swain, I think, kind of in childhood. Like their family did that a lot, which was really cool. So she grew up with a skiing background, wasn't like crazy into like doing like huge tricks and stuff, but had a good competent level of skiing, which was cool. She actually never rode a mountain bike in the woods until she met me, and so that was like 2016, and now she can do like an 8-foot drop at Killington, which is pretty cool. Crazy. She picked it up and she loves it, which is cool. That was like I don't know. That's one of the coolest things, is being able to like go to a bike park with your significant other and go have fun ripping down trails. And like, I don't know, I can have fun with anyone on a bike if they're loving it and having fun and improving. It's like, that's one of the best parts about it. And it's like, I could go do the majority of the day with her in the morning, and if she gets a little tired, go grab the afternoon with the guys and catch back up with them and rip some harder, crazier stuff. But I'm having fun either way both times.
Great. Relationships, modern relationships, and maybe old school versus new school. Maybe it's a duality, maybe it's a spectrum. But let's say on one side of the spectrum, dating is essentially tryouts for wife, mother, right? Mm-hmm. The other side of the spectrum is maybe the more modern thing where it's like dating is just for this fun compatibility. It's about me and us and now, right?
Mm-hmm. Where
were you on that spectrum when you saw her and asked her out and whatnot?
So I think for me, like, I definitely knew, like, I don't know, I guess as a kid or whatever, that I definitely want to have like a wife and family. I wouldn't say I was much of a ladies man. I'd say like, I wasn't very popular, cool. Like, I was just sort of just a normal person in my college and high school days. It definitely wasn't part of like kind of like hookup culture or anything like that. And I'd say same with her. It wasn't. It was like find a significant other and I guess test the waters, see how you guys jive, that kind of thing. And from the moment we started dating, like I almost want to say like a few weeks into dating, we kind of like knew like this is the thing. Like, I mean, I remember calling and probably talking to my twin brother, like within like 2 weeks of dating, being like, yep, this will be my wife, guaranteed.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was, and I do remember because it was so funny the summer before that when I was up at University of Buffalo, I remember the summer I had an internship thing doing like asbestos abatement project monitoring. And it was awful. I'd go all day with dudes, like on a job, like just hanging out, and then go back to the house that we had. And it was 3 other dudes that were up there for the summer. It was just like, it was minimal, like hangout, minimal social life. Like, and there's just everyone I was friends with was back home in Binghamton or whatever, anyone that I'd normally see. So it was like kind of a lonely, crappy summer. And I was like, man, I really hope I find something lines up. And I'd say it lined up pretty damn perfect.
So you knew pretty quickly that this is the one.
Yeah.
How long did you date before you I mean, you actually told us all this stuff already. I bet no one pieced it together, but how long did you date before you asked her to marry you?
3 years. Yeah, 3 years.
She said yes.
Yeah, said yes. Yep. It was kind of funny because when we were younger into our relationship, we had always like just talked about the future and like marriage and that kind of stuff, which was good. That was good to have established because she was like, yeah, I'd say yes even if you proposed with a ring pop.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, I brought a ring pop.
That's awesome, dude.
So on the beach of California, I had a ring pop.
You talked about marriage. You talked about kids. You talked about all that, right?
And she had 4 or 3 siblings just like me. She was the youngest, and I had my 3 siblings. So we kind of knew we wanted kids no matter what. Didn't know the number. I think originally when we were younger, maybe it was like, we want 4, but now having kids, it's kind of like, two's a pretty good number. But
2.1 is replacement.
Yeah.
So you need to have one more.
I don't know if we got it in us.
Okay.
We're loving the fact that we got a boy and a girl too was like,
yeah,
that was pretty awesome. I knew growing up with all brothers, I was like, I want to have a son, like to do all the same stuff I was doing with all my brothers, but also having a girl is like awesome too, because it's like I don't know the dynamic of it all.
Yeah,
I've never had a sister or anything like that, like the interaction. So it's cool.
In my experience with kids, and that's going to be mostly like 7 and up.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of my skate lessons, like that 7 to 12.
Yeah,
like girls are so much easier. But I'm sure once you get into teenage years, things.
Yeah, I think
different,
it
right?
switches.
And with my daughter, it might just be her how she is now, but she's like such an easy baby.
Mm-hmm.
Like I see some other babies and boys, and as soon as they're walking, they're psychopaths.
Yeah, it's
like jumping off stuff, running into wall. It's like, what are you doing?
It's so weird with kids how much of a dynamic and difference that they can have.
Yeah.
Like some kids are easy, some kids are a nightmare. Like our daughter Mia was like off the bat was like the greatest sleeper you could ever have. Like it was like almost too easy. And
That's
then
how my daughter is.
But now things have changed. It's become a little bit hard.
Yeah.
They get their waves, but it's
sure.
like it's funny because like I don't know. I remember bad experiences. I remember having them, but I can't think off the top of my head, right off the cuff, of like the worst or bad memory. So that's great. That labels the significance of it. It's not that significant.
Before we dive too deep into the kids stuff,
yeah,
let's just like tidy up. Let's just put a nice little neat bow on the marriage wife side. You know, what do you? I presume you think you're probably a fairly decent husband, right? I think that's fair.
I try to be. Hopefully, I am.
What do you do? What is a good husband? Like, what are the things?
Definitely trying to listen to your significant other, not just function with them, I guess, is actually try to hear what they're saying. Try to walk a mile in their shoes kind of thing. Like really try to feel what they're experiencing and what they're struggling with, I guess. I know that me and my wife we're a little different, and like my wife is extremely like efficient at doing things. Like it's like, I don't know, like put a task, like clean a kitchen, clean the room, and like do a couple of things. She'll get it done super efficient and be done and just relax. Whereas I'm like a grunt worker where like I'll work long hours on something, but I like tend to like operate at like a 70% or 80% like efficiency, like where it's like I can tough it out and work longer, work harder, but I don't work as like efficient as her. So it's like kind of figuring out the what our pros and cons are that we have and trying to complement each other with, I guess, the opposite, or try to fill in the gap.
You said you guys would talk about the future. Is that something you continually do? Is that like a regular practice? Do you do that intentionally, or is it just like kind of organically happen in conversation?
I'd say kind of happens organically. I mean, we have our things we want, our plans we want. I mean, things obviously like career-wise have changed for me, and that's because we've talked about our futures and what we want and like having better, like, because my previous jobs were on the private side and they were a little bit more kind of higher stress, more work, higher workload, whereas she started at the state a lot earlier than me, and it was like she had a much better work-life balance. And it was like we just talking about stuff like that, knowing that our future, we want to kind of both be in a better work-life balance. And that's what ended up with me being at the state. So I have a little bit kind of better schedule, a little more time off, a little more leeway, like with things. So like, I guess stuff like that, planning for the future.
Do you guys have, like, if I were to ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I were to ask her, are we going to get like a really similar answer?
I would say for the most part, yeah, I would hope. I think we have pretty similar thoughts on like our kids and where we want them and where we want us. And maybe I have a few more random like bike park trips planned in the works, hopefully. But
I think it's really, 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 really important to have a shared vision of the future together.
100%.
I think your values in the world, the things that you actually value and your goals. And like, this is actually, it's funny. I just talked about this on my first podcast, Wrench Life. Mm-hmm. You have to have your values and goals in accordance with each other. But then when you're in a relationship, you have their values and their goals, right? And no one's values and goals are in perfect accordance with each other.
No.
And like I always tell people, you need to watch yourself the way you watch someone else. And if you say you value this, but your actions say otherwise, then you can reverse engineer what you actually value, and then you should be able to check yourself on that. And if you're with a good partner, you should be able to do that for them, and they should be able to do that for you. And then you slowly bring your values together, right?
Yeah.
And all of those things kind of build up like a framework, a map, so to speak, of your reality. And then you're both navigating the world with more or less the same map.
Yeah.
But that takes work, and it takes time to sit and have those conversations. And I do those with my wife. And in the beginning, it does feel weird, like you're trying to force it. But like sometimes we sit down and I check up and I'm like, give me 1 to 10. Like, do you feel appreciated? Do you feel,
That's a good one to consider and do.
Because like there's intimacy, like obviously there's sexual intimacy, but then there's like romanticism, like, like where are we
feeling
at 1
appreciated,
out of 10? And like, because you don't want to tell your wife explicitly what you want, but if I'm at like a 6 this month, okay, noted, and you hope, some adjustment happens, right?
Yeah.
And it's tough, when you have kids.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like finding time.
Yeah, you start your life kind of changes a little, where it's like the focus goes to the kids and less to gotta balance both. I mean, it's everything in life is always a balancing act, but that's definitely a very important thing. You don't want to lose your significant other because you got so involved with your kids. But
we recently, like, the intimacy isn't the same when you have a baby in the house, and then my wife's son's around for half the time. So it's like there's only certain times, and then like you can't have that spontaneity of like, oh, the moment feels right.
Yeah.
So then it's like you have to take it when you can get it, but also it like sucks the
life out of it, or it doesn't feel
right.
Yeah.
So like after
it doesn't feel as organic.
Alice is
maybe
almost a year old. So we got to the point where I was like, what do we do about this? And like we like literally like brainstormed about it, and we're like, all right, well, if we could try to foster little bits of romanticism in our life, right? Like, you know, little texts here and there, like, you know, what are the things I say or do that kind of keep that little spark going? And then if you kind of keep that flame lit and burning a little warm, when you do have that moment, you're like, oh, this is the moment, versus not like, oh, this is our only chance. So let's, you know.
Yeah. You don't want to spend all the days being just two business partners and then have to flip the switch to.
Yeah. But you almost have to still be business partners about it. And then just like, again, especially when if you're young and you don't have kids and, you know, you don't even think about that. You don't even structure the relationship that way. I have friends that their relationships are suboptimal, and them and their partners cannot communicate well. And when you get to the point where you're just like rolling your eyes at each other, like, where do you even go from there? Right.
Yeah.
So you have to like try to boil yourself down to like the most simple thing that you guys can talk about and not fight about, and then find some resolution and then scale up. But then you both have to cooperate. It's like, but I don't want to ever get there. So like, as you said, talking about the future, doing that work. Like, relationships work, right? You can't just sit back and think things are, you know, she's gonna take care of the kids, I would make money, whatever, who cares? You know, it's not like that.
No, yeah.
I was just slowly, I mean, you're either growing apart or growing together.
Sometimes like the uncomfortable conversations turned into what make comfort too. That's definitely something to be said about that. There's, you go through tough times and you learn. I mean, that's the only way you learn lessons is when things happen. So
yes,
but yeah.
My wife and I will talk 1 year plan. Every year on New Year's we sit down. I'm like, oh, year predictions. You know, we talk about 5 year. We talk like, you know, and then, you know, she'll be like, oh, I want to get a goat. All right. Let's get the chickens first. We planned.
You got the chickens?
Not yet. This year we're trying to get chickens. Like, let's just do the chickens, honey. You know, and she sees some reels and she gets all excited. But I'm more like, you mentioned one thing and I'm just like, here's all the things that go along with that. I'm like, yeah, no, it's not there yet. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is relationships are work, and as I just said, like, you're either growing apart from each other or you're growing with each other. And if
you gotta have an end goal you're both looking for.
If you and your partner are not growing together, that means you're growing apart, and you either need to get the fuck out or fix that right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you have kids, all of a sudden it's like, you better be working on it.
Oh yeah,
because now the collateral damage isn't just like you're bummed for a couple of months. It's like you're not gonna ruin your kids' lives, but like this is gonna affect them forever. And what your daughter is going to see you, and you're going to be her vision of what a man is, right? The way you treat your wife is going to set a precedent for how your daughter sees how men should treat women. And same thing for your son and your mom. So like, you better do a good job. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. They say, want to have your kids embarrassed by how much your parents kiss and care about each other. That's something I saw online the other day, and it's like, that's a good model to live by. Make your kids see what they're looking at. That's a great model.
My wife and I have a great relationship, and we like fool around and like we joke around, which might be funny because maybe people don't see the joking side of me all the time. I'm like all serious all the time, but I'm pretty playful. My father was very playful.
Yeah.
Dar actually said recently that the most surprising thing about me was how like playful I am in the right environment. But we were doing breakfast one morning, and I came over with the coffee pot, and I was like, oh, you need a refill? You know, like at the diner or whatever. And I poured the coffee, and I turned, and she gave me a little slap on the butt, you know? And my wife's son was like, you guys are weird. You know, he's 11.
That's good.
And I was like, well, yeah, it is kind of weird, but it's also funny. Like, you know, we just like each other, and we're playing around, you know? And he's like, well, I just never seen this before. And it was just like he didn't realize what a heartbreaking thing that was for him to say, because he lives with his dad and his stepmom the other half of the time. And it's like, oh, like he just said that. And like, I don't have a particularly positive opinion on his stepdad, because I have very little interaction with him other than what I've heard. Yeah. You know, and like I try not to pass too much judgment. But then he just says that, and I'm like, oh, God, what's life like?
What's it like over behind closed doors over there, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just so like, man, that pulls us back to like, you know, you got to set a good example
Oh
for
yeah.
your kids.
Yep.
And that's the next topic here is like, you have kids, you do stuff with your kids. You know, why should someone have kids? Like I know people are like, I just want to have fun. I want to ride my bike. I want to skateboard forever. I don't want to have kids. Why should that person have kids? Or why should they not?
I was just going to say just before that for coming with like the talking about planning and stuff with a family and wife, like, I mean, we knew we wanted to have kids, but we also knew that we wanted to have a lot of fun, like doing cool stuff, traveling, that kind of thing.
Let me stop you there. You can't have fun and kids.
Oh, you can.
I've been told this over and over again. You're not. Once you have kids, there's no more fun.
That's the best statement because those are just people who don't know how to do it.
That's why you're here.
Yeah,
you're doing it.
That is true. I remember there were so many people like, oh well, you might as well sell the bikes or get rid of the skis, or oh, you're not traveling you're not doing your day trips to Vermont at random that I do. And I'm like, no, I think I'll still do them. We'll figure them out. It's just a different level of complexity and planning, but you just do it. You think out everything ahead of time. You plan for stuff right. I mean, I got a really good support system back home.
That dovetails with what we were just talking about, where like you and your wife are on the same page and you plan and you talk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just the planning thing. Yeah, we knew like, hey, we got married, whatever, when we were 25. Yeah, 25. And we're like,
young. How old are you now?
I'm 34.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This one day I'm going to grow a beard. I'm excited for it.
Oh, you're almost been married for a decade?
Yeah, coming up on 10 years in June.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love my wife so much. I'm like jealous that we haven't been married for 10 years yet.
Yeah. But we knew like kind of just the first 5 years, we were like, I don't know if we had like an actual number plotted out or anything. It was kind of just like, no, we want to do a lot of fun stuff. We want to enjoy each other. We don't need to like race into having kids. I knew I didn't want to like, it would be cool to be like maybe even a younger dad than what I was. But I knew like with my dad was about 30, I think he's 31 years older than me, right on like something like that. So I'm like, all right, that's kind of what I'm going to shoot for. Like, I don't want to be one of the people like that had kids when they're like 40 or something like that, like where it's just too far a separation. Like, yeah, I don't mean that, Ned.
No, it's irrelevant. I'm not really. Well, I just turned 38 this weekend, but I'm probably not your typical 38-year-old, really.
Yeah, but we knew that there was like a certain time frame that we kind of just were able to work and plan and aim for that, and we got pretty lucky, I guess, timing wise that it sort of worked out as it did. I'm happy with like our kids are so close in age that I kind of gets the whole shit show of parenting kind of together and out of the way. It's like, it's not like have a kid, wait 5 years, boom, here comes the next, and got to plan through or do everything again. Yeah. It's kind of like they're, I don't know, going through the thick of things all at the same time.
That's something I wish someone told me. Like, I started to think too about it eventually, but that whole idea of like, at some point, you get to be peers with your kid. And if you wait too long to have kids, that window is really small. I got to have that with my dad, despite him having me relatively late. But that's because my dad was a pretty youthful guy, too. He liked to have a good time and drink some beers and play music and guitar. And so, but by the time I lived with him before I moved here in my like mid-20s.
Yeah.
But he didn't have the physicality at that point in time to do stuff together outside, like hiking or whatever, because smoking and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But we got to have some fun. Now I said I had Alice at 37. We're gonna have another kid, not this year. We're gonna try next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless somehow the skate park turns around dramatically in the next 3 months, and I don't have to worry about finances, then we'll try this summer to have the kid in early spring, because that's what works. But I don't see that happening, so we're actually going to hold off on that for this year and see
where things go. Yeah,
because then it'd be the following year if things don't get better, then the following year would be the year I'm going to close the skate park. So then I'd be like, all right, cool. So we'll have the baby right about when we're closing up shop, and I guess we'll figure something out later. But hopefully none of those things, that doesn't happen, and the skate park stays around forever.
Yeah, I hope so.
But I do wish that someone told me that. Like, I wish no one, like my dad and all the older men in my life never talked about that. They never really talked about being a good dad or a good father or a good husband, or, you know, having kids, or you need to have kids, you should have kids, it's important to have kids. It was like literally the complete. And my dad was awesome. I'm not like, he was a great guy, but they just like seemingly completely abdicated passing on the torch of that. Because I feel like our parents' generation was like it's like everyone got divorced and everyone had a bad taste in their mouths, and women, I don't like them. You know?
Yeah, it sucks because it's like for like you want to tell like the younger generation and like kids who are, I don't know, in their call it 16 to like 20-year-old range, like, yeah, it's cool, have fun, lay back, enjoy everything, but kind of get some balls rolling in your head and think of what you really want far in the future, because you can't change the future once you're there. Like, you can plan and you can prep and line things up a little bit better. You can do things a little bit better here and there to kind of get what you want, but you can't, like, as it's happening, you're kind of miss what you want. You can't go back and change it. It's like, but it's so weird because it's like you don't want to tell someone of that age, like, hey, be serious about life, but try to be a little bit, or at least have it consciously in your mind of like, I don't know, keep stuff on your mind. But yeah, the whole having time with like Cam, I've kind of thought it out in my head. Like, I follow a couple of people on Instagram. There's a kid named Julian. I don't know how to say his last name. It starts with a V, but he's like, I think 10 years old, and he can like double backflip a bike and like stuff like that. So it's like, that's my benchmark of like, not that I'm going to have Cam doing that, but that's my benchmark of like, oh, I can go to a bike park and really like do some awesome blue trails and black trails with Cam. As he's 10, I'd be 40, 41. And then there's a guy named Wayne DeVingo, who's right now he's 64 years old, and he still checks every single box at Highland Bike Park of all the features. So in theory, potentially, I could have from 41 all the way up to 64, I could have 23 years of
pretty good.
Hard thrashing with the kids.
That's pretty good.
That's the end goal. But there's a lot of fitness protocol I'd have to follow and keeping safe, and
Well, it's March 13th. My daughter turns 1 year on the 30th.
Oh, that's exciting.
And yesterday, she started to move the balance trike in the house.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
She would sit on it and she would kind of like rock it, but not like push off. And then yesterday she like pushed and like rolled like, you know, a half rotation, and she's like, whoa. Is
it a Strider or no?
It's like a balanced Strider trike thing. So it's like, it's an interesting thing. It like pivots in half. So right now, the back wheels are maybe 3 inches apart.
Mm-hmm.
But then if it like disconnects and then pivots around the other way, and then the wheels are closer together, and it's closer to a bike.
Interesting.
And I have another one that's a trike that's 2 wheels up front, 1 wheel in the back, but that one's actually harder to balance, and the bars are like lower. We put her on both of them, and literally like said like yesterday, she like can make it all the way across the living room in a scooch.
That's awesome.
Not like a full walk balance, but like, I'm hoping she kind of can really use that thing before the 1 year mark, because that would be so epic.
Yep. That's really exciting. That's we're just watching that. I mean, seeing like, I don't know, when I see Cam and Mia, when they both bomb around on their little Striders and stuff, like how
old are they?
Cam is coming up on 4 at the end of April. He'll be 4. And Mia's 2.5. They're like 16 and a half months apart. And it's cool because it's like, I don't know, like,
oh shit. We're just wrapping up some technical difficulties. The stream went down because we lost internet connection. It is what it is. My modem went down during Wrenchfest a couple times. Whatever.
That's unfortunate. Oh well, we got good stuff we can still talk about.
Yeah, it's the wireless router because it's happened. It's like one of the networks go down on the router. Like, why would just one? But anyway, we kind of hit all the questions I was going to ask you about. Like everything I had lined up to say, we kind of like already hit it. That you're doing everything despite having the kids. You're planning with your wife. You're still taking your day trips. That's awesome.
I was going to say one of the things I'd point on too with like doing fun stuff, because I have a lot of people who are like, man, you have 2 kids. How are you still doing fun stuff? And it's like, well, a lot of it is helping on the back side of things. Like I I usually, like when the kids wake up, when the kids were younger and they did like night feedings, I volunteered for all of them because I can operate on very minimal sleep pretty well. My wife usually does a lot better when she has a lot more sleep, and it doesn't really bother me, but it's kind of like it's almost like you're getting bonus points ahead of time. So you can get
100%.
Yeah, you just kind of put your time in, and then it's like a little easier to be like, hey, can I have some leeway and go do something with the guys or go do a trip like this? Like, yeah, I've definitely done my fair share of fun trips while still having a kid. I mean, 2 months into Cam being born, I went to Montana for a wedding for 2 days or 3 days, like kind of unheard of. Usually that kind of thing wouldn't happen. And I've definitely done like a boys ski trip. I did a Lake Tahoe bike park, whatever, 4 or 5 days with Ricky and some other friends. That was cool. So it's kind of like gotta do your payments ahead of time, sort of thing. You
understand the trade-off.
Yeah,
everything is a trade-off.
A lot of good trading off.
You make the sacrifices.
Yeah, but it's manageable. You just have to prepare and think ahead.
When your wife asks you for something, you do it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
That's it. Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm gonna give you a couple rapid fire questions for the end here.
Oh boy, I hope I do good at these. I feel like I'm not gonna.
Yeah. Normally I write them ahead of time, and I didn't. But what was your first bike at all, if you recall?
First bike, I think it was called a Kent, I think was the name. And it was like a little, probably with like the 14-inch tires, maybe is what I kind of remember.
What was your first real bike?
Oh, first real bike. Probably it was a Trek 24 speed, something or other kind of mountain bike that I had at my parents'. And I'd say the first bike as an adult was that Gary Fisher High Five Pro.
Okay. Do skis kind of work like that? Like, do you have do you remember like these are the sickest pair of skis I ever had? Like,
I remember because when my growing up of skiing was right when like kind of twin tip skis came around.
What does that mean?
That means I have the lip on the back of the ski so you can ski backwards. Before, like early 90s, like all skis were just regular, just go forward. And then it wasn't until like the mid 90s where they started saying, hey, snowboarders have it going both ways. Why don't skis? And then finally twin tips started to come out. And I remember probably being 11 or something, getting my first pair of twin tip skis. And it was the coolest, funnest
and then
thing.
You could go fakie.
Yeah, you go backwards, hit jumps backwards, which I wasn't really good at. You could land backwards, which was cool.
What's the best car you ever owned? What's like your favorite car you've ever owned?
Luckily, I've never prioritized vehicles because I've always prioritized toys.
Yeah.
Car I've owned not much. I've had I loved my 98 Honda Civic. I had that from 141,000 miles all the way up to 286,000.
Wow.
And I actually sold it with it working fine. I put a plow on it.
You had a 98 Honda Civic with a plow on it.
Yep. I'll have to send you and show you pictures of it. My twin brother, we're dirtbag rednecks. We literally he did a plow on
take the boy out of Binghamton.
Yeah. He put a plow on a hatchback Honda Civic. He cut the hatch of the Honda Civic and turned it into a truck. And he's carried 2 dirt bikes in the bed of a Honda Civic, if you can believe it.
Wow.
The Honda Civics actually plow snow pretty incredibly because it's all the weight up front and it's front wheel drive. It was back in, I think it was 2017. Yeah, we had that big storm in February. I had a picture go semi-viral on Facebook. Somebody took a picture of it and it had like 5,000 or 6,000 like likes or something, which was cool. But that day I actually, I plowed out 7 or 8 stuck cars and I towed a truck out. He wasn't stuck. He wasn't stuck that bad, but it was enough where he couldn't get the traction to work. And we just hooked right up to me and I pulled him out. It was pretty iconic. But yeah, I'd say the Honda Civics have always been nice. I've never had a car more than whatever, $4,000. Obviously now, like as an adult, I guess I've got my truck, which is just a 2016 like Chevy Colorado. I guess I like that. That's the nicest I'll call it. Yeah.
If you can go back and ride one thing or one place, like of all the things you've done, what's one you'd love to have one more session, one more hit at?
I would say First year of getting into mountain biking, I got to go to Whistler Bike Park at the end of the season, which was awesome. I would love to get back out there.
Where's
now.
Whistler?
Out in British Columbia.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I would love to get back out there now that I'm like a lot more versed in biking. Before I was still hitting some stuff, but I definitely wasn't hitting like the biggest things out there. So that would definitely be one. Trying to think. I'd love to go back in time with skiing with some of the terrain parks that they used to have, because I feel like ski terrain parks have kind of downgraded over the years, or at least stuff in the States that's owned and operated by Vail Resorts. Vail sucks. For anyone who knows the ski world.
They own Woodward.
They do? Yeah.
That's what I heard. They own Woodward now.
That would make sense, yeah, because they own Park City now, and Park City they just put in Woodward there. But if they own the whole entity of Woodward, I hope they don't ruin that, because Woodward's a pretty special place.
Yeah.
Have you been to the Woodward on the East Coast ever?
Yeah, I went there for a weekend once.
Nice.
I never rode the whole place. I'm always a street guy.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And I mean, you said you wanted a boy and a girl, and you got a boy and a girl. I mean, that's good.
Yeah.
You don't want another? Two's good.
Yeah, I mean, we've thought about it, but now we're kind of at the point where the age separation in them, we wouldn't like it as much. And it's like, I mean, we always I guess toyed around with the idea of it, but we all I don't know. We're really happy with the two.
Does anything compare at all in how rewarding doing stuff with your kids is? Watching your kids develop? Is it even close?
Not really, and I know I'm only at the beginning stages of it. That's the
and I'm 1 year in, and it's unbelievable. And I do a lot of stuff. I do a lot of very rewarding community building stuff.
Yeah.
And everything pales in comparison.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
Yeah, exactly. We're both only kind of at the beginning stages of it, and there's a lot more really cool milestones that are coming. Which is nice to look forward to. It's a great thing to look forward to.
So all you young guys, if you actually get to this podcast, if you listen to this.
Yeah, we got to get some more youngsters on here.
Yeah. Find a lady who's willing to communicate and grow, so you guys can grow together. You can build a family together. Like I said earlier, you're either growing apart or you're growing together. So find someone that you can grow together with, that you can cultivate a shared vision of the world, and then you could raise awesome kids and do really cool stuff. It's not that hard, and there's nothing as rewarding as even little things with your kids. Like the first kickflip, the first time you rolled out on the bike, the first backflip, none of it doesn't scratch the surface.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, there's been a lot of cool kind of first things that I've done for myself, and they don't compare yet. Nope.
It's crazy.
And I never knew it would. And it's funny because my dad always tells us, he's like, he's said it to all my brothers. He's like, whatever you think and you feel about your kids and how much you love them, just know we loved you just the same.
Past tense.
Yeah.
Loved. Not anymore.
Still do, hopefully.
So do you have any messages, a message for the riders, the kids, the dads out there? Something you want to leave them with?
Yeah. I mean, as a parent, things are doable. You can make things happen. You have to plan them out. That's part of growing in life. You gotta mature and come up with ways that you can make things happen, plan stuff out, coordinate things right. What else did I say? Just being present. Being present is
It's really important.
Yeah. Like you can go through the roles of doing stuff. You can have your kid playing outside on his strider and just bury your face in the phone, or you can play an interactive game with the kid while he's on his strider and set up some cones. And how fast can you go through on this? Like, it's funny, just before coming here today.
You're very engaged with your kids. It's really inspiring.
Yeah. Just before coming here, I had the kids both in the driveway. I actually had my bike and I had a wagon that I was towing by hand with one of the kids in it. And behind that wagon was hooked up with another tie down rope and another push cart thing with the other kid. And I was like, we're a choo-choo train. Here we go down the driveway.
I think a lot of dudes, they don't want to put their ego aside to do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you have the kids, it's a lot easier to do that. When you think about that in the abstract, it's like, it'll sound lame, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I would have never known, I guess, I heard from my older brothers when they had kids and like, oh, you think all this skiing and biking and flipping and stuff is fun. There's other stuff that's funner. I'm like, oh, no way. It can't be that way.
And what you said about the phones is super true. It's like, if you're listening to this and you're older like we are, you know, our parents didn't have the phones.
Yeah.
When you think back to like, you know, your Little League game, you looked up, your dad maybe is talking to the guy next to him, but he's watching, you know?
Yeah.
There's times I try not to be on my phone around Alice. It does happen because I also have to work on my phone all the time. And the social media stuff, I'm trying to figure out what's working. And it's me just luring my way into justifying it. But sometimes it's like, you know, I'll catch a moment where we're in the living room with Alice and both my wife and I are both looking at our phones. And I'm like, what are we doing right now? Like I'm about to be like, we just need to have a rule. Like, don't have the phone in the room with the baby at the same time. Like, cause she tries to grab my phone all the time. And I'm like, that just shows you she's already,
she thinks that it's an important
and like
item.
My wife and I are people that really care about not looking at her phones around the baby and not like, it's like all of it, the microplastics, like all that, like new school hippie, whatever stuff. Like we're all about that. Like we don't have a TV in our house. We're trying to do this whole Montessori thing. So every time she's trying to grab my phone, it's like, I'm like, oh my God, we're ruining her. We're messing up. We're deviating from the plan.
Yeah, it's terrible because phones they're truly a blessing and a curse. Like there's a 0.5 terabyte of I've literally had that, like the memory card in that phone since I was 18 years old. I have every single thing on it. It's so cool that I can do it. Mm-hmm. And it's got all my kids' pictures, every memory that we've made, which is great. But then it's also got the downside of the things you waste and burn time on.
I mean, this thing can be on one side of it, of the coin. It is the most valuable, useful tool you'll ever have. And the other side of it, it is a life-sucking happiness void.
Yep.
And you need to check yourself to see what you're doing with it. Because like if your kids just see you using it, that's all they're going to do, and then they're going to get obliterated by this thing, the same way we are, and it's terrible.
Yeah,
it's absolutely terrible.
An interesting concept to think with a phone. I wish there was a way to visualize it for people. But so your phone's 6 inches long. You refresh the screen. I don't know, like thumbing up on something maybe every 3 seconds. So you do 20 of them in a minute. That's 10 feet. 10 feet of phone you're reading. Most people are on their phones 3 hours at least.
Way more than that.
Way more than that. Most likely way more than that. But I mean, just taking the number 3 hours, 180 minutes. So 1,080 or 1,800 feet. Imagine a 1,800 foot tall thing of phone screen. Do you think you'd really want to ever pick that up and look at it?
No.
But it happens because it just scrolls so easy.
So good, yeah. They're so good at keeping you engaged.
Yeah. It's like, it's a wild blessing and a curse.
In Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, he said that the average teenager now spends more time on their phone than they do sleeping. So it's like 6.5, 7 hours.
I'd believe it, yeah.
And my phone, like my wife and I used to try to like battle to see whose could be lower. And now that I'm doing a video a day, my screen time's like horrendous.
No,
but that's also because like if I'm filming, the camera's on. If I'm editing, the camera's on. Like last week, I used my phone to live stream this podcast, so that was 2 hours. The phone was just on, so like my screen time was like.
So when you're going and comparing, you'd be like, got to deduct 2 hours. That doesn't count.
Yeah, right. At least
that was part of work.
I think that the phones are really like. If there wasn't the phones, I think a lot more people would be connecting with their partners.
I hate
connecting with their kids.
I feel so badly for any person in this generation that has to deal with a phone and a relationship and texting, like the ambiguity of texting for a relationship. Like it needs this when you're meeting and talking and learning about someone. It needs a person to person interaction. The people who have to figure this, like these games of texting back and forth and trying to guess what they're feeling by how they're talking. And it's like, I couldn't imagine being someone in that generation trying to figure out life. It's kudos to anyone who's
Yeah.
going through that battle.
It can be useful when communicating once you have an established relationship by understanding each person, and everyone communicates a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like the projection of social media and texting conversations versus face to face. I gotta keep telling like Ben Tripp and all the young kids, like, just go up to her.
Yeah.
Say, hi, my name is so and so.
Yeah.
If you're available and interested, I would like to, take you out sometime.
Maybe in this day and age with how much like phones and shit are in the way, like maybe a girl, hopefully somewhere out there would appreciate that, like the change in pace.
Because no one else is doing that. If you're the only one that says, hey, like I'd like to take you on a proper date. Then you show up and you're like, oh, I'm not going to look at my phone while we're dating because that's a horrendous thing. And I'm going to wear a nice shirt. I'm going to treat her right. And then you're going to look like, 100 miles more attractive than the next guy because, like they're just trying to slide in their DMs and pull some bullshit. And you're just trying to be like, hey, like, I'd like to take you out. You seem attractive. Maybe we have some compatibility. And if we're not, it's fine. Then dinner's just on me. Just like an adult. Just be the adult in the room.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Well, I'll say one last.
One more.
No, just one last good piece of advice in leaving work. Parenting can be hard and can suck at home, or it can be hard and suck at a fun place. Do it at the fun place.
All right.
That's the best way I can put it. It's like when we go on like say a trip to like Joyride or something, like it's hard, it's tough. It's going to be about the same at home. Yeah, we got a couple of creature comforts at home that maybe they're used to or that they play better with, but it's going to be hard either way. Do it where it's fun. If you're going to do the vacation with the kid, take them on it. Do it. You won't.
It's so much better for them to do it out somewhere random. Like if people, it's the tablet, it's the phone, it's the kid. Like if you just fall into these patterns of, oh, this shuts the kid up.
Oh, that's like, the worst.
You're never learning anything.
The worst thing I can say is Band-Aids. Doing Band-Aids as fixes is like...
Literal Band-Aids or figurative?
No, figurative Band-Aids of situations. Like, oh, this will quiet the kid down for this situation.
Kicking the can down the road.
It's like, no, you're just prolonging a problem. Make the kid put the stink up. Be embarrassed in public. Like, I guess I'm lucky because I don't really usually give a crap what people think of me most of the time. But like if we're out somewhere in public and the kid's going to make up a stink, I'm not usually the one to be like, here, take this lollipop and it'll shut you up, or take my
way.
It's like, nope, here, scream, make me look like an idiot. I'm going to walk out with a smile knowing that we're growing, we're doing better. Yeah. I'd rather not be your friend now, and I'll be your best friend when we're older because you respect me because we did that and you learned and grew from it. That's in one of the books I read. I don't remember which one it was, but it's you can either try to be friends with your kid when they're a kid, or you can be friends with your kid when they're adult, and you don't really get both. Yeah. And that's not to say you can't really, it's more like a ratio. Yeah. You're your kid's parent. You're also the friend, but you're mostly parenting. Yeah. And if you try to only be their friend, they're never going to fucking grow up. And then when they grow up, they're going to be shitty adults. You're not going to be friends. I remember seeing kids growing up that we knew and we were friends with, and like even relatives, and being like, man, those kids have it awesome. Their parents, they do everything for them. They help them with everything. They do everything. They do so much fun stuff. And they're kind of shitheads now. Yeah. Like people don't grow up. I know we said we're going to end this, but this just pisses me off knowing people stop growing up. Yep. There are so many adults who are children. Yep. They act like children. They dress like children. They eat like children. Oh, they're eating like children. There's a lot of people like eat children. Terrible. Like there are so many. They don't take responsibility, accountability. They are just children. You'll be 30 years old still calling their mom to go to the dentist. Grow the fuck up. Seriously. Like I don't like swearing on the podcast, but like, oh my God. Yep. Put on your big boy pants. Like the problem is like, if you're someone like I just described, like you are so far away from being a parent and like finding a partner, like you just don't even have the context. You don't have the language. Like I don't know what that person's going to do, but I hope you got to start somewhere, Yeah, exactly. So thank you for being here. Absolutely. I'm sorry we got partially cut off. And the stream went down. That sucks. But I guess that means I'm going to have to actually do some editing tomorrow and trim out that middle part and re-upload this. But thank you for being here. Absolutely. Maybe we'll do this again sometime. There's really plenty more we could dive in on the kids stuff. For sure. That stuff like gets me
I get all teary and cry all the time. Like, the positive emotion fucks me all up.
Understandable. But it's important stuff.
How important it is, how meaningful it is, you know?
Yep.
The kids are the future.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah,
So,
you got to give them a guiding light in this semi-dark world sometimes. You want to give them the best resources they can have and the best way to steer forward, because it seems like it's getting harder and harder figuring out this world. So you want to raise someone who's strong and knows to do right.
But you want someone to be strong, independent, self-reliant, determined. Like, you have to foster that in them. And just, he only eats macaroni and cheese and chicken fingers.
Yeah, no.
Here's the tablet. It's like, what? Like, extrapolate what you're doing to that kid into adult behavior, and like, tell what's it look like? You know?
Yeah.
What you were saying of, oh God, we're going off on a tangent again. I'm gonna stop. I'm just gonna stop. We'll come back on another time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, Shawn Danek.
Oh.
Thank you everyone for watching. You know, all the typical podcast stuff: like, subscribe, share with your friends, hit up the Patreon if you want to support this podcast. You can do it for as little as $5 a month, but do not do it on Apple, because Apple is fucking over Patreon and they'll charge you an additional 30% on top of it. Yeah,
good to know.
Apple's
terrible.
Existing Patreon, you're locked in at the price you're at.
Yeah.
If right now you go look at Patreon now through an Apple, it will be 30% higher than what the price is, because Apple's taking a huge cut.
Jeez, that's a monstrous cut.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm optimistic that they will resolve this some way better than this. But you can just go onto a computer.
Yeah, just a regular desk.
I gotta look.
Or a good old Android.
You might be able to just do it in the browser on your phone rather than through the app.
That would make sense.
But if it doesn't change, then maybe I'll explore other platforms. I'm already growing a base on Patreon, so hopefully that gets figured out.
Yeah,
but that's another thing. So again, you know the deal. Like, subscribe, blah 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 blah. I don't want to say it because you all know. And if you want to be on the podcast, reach out and feel free to send me an email or comment what you liked or didn't like about this, or any insights you had. Let us know. Would love to get it going.
Also, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice.
That is true. And also, if you on YouTube, if you write the timestamp in the comments, it will be hyperlinked. So you could say, hey, at this point, at minute 1 hour, 20 seconds, whatever, Dave picked his nose. So thank you, everybody. I'll see you at Skatepark later, and keep grinding.
Woohoo!